liberty, and justice for all. Okay, moving on to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to accept and place on file the minutes from the June 19th, 2023 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next is a motion to accept and place on file the minutes from the June 26, 2023 special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next is a motion to accept and place on file the minutes from the July 17th, 2023 executive session meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Abstain.
opposed?
I wasn't present at the meeting.
Okay, motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0 with one abstention. Next, we have the town manager's update. Mr. Tierney.
Good evening, Madam President, Madam President Pro Tem, members of the council, and those at home listening. This week, this Friday, we opened up as open space the Middlebridge parcel that was not, no bid was accepted for. We placed signage up there, and there's some rules that were set up for it, simply no camping, no overnight parking. We saw some use of it over the weekend, but it's open now as public space. We checked with the Rhode Island Interlocal Trust, and we had to deal with DigSafe first before we could open it up. But it's been open since Friday morning now as public space for the rest of the season. We had received some additional complaints from Great Island regarding coyote complaints. We've completed some signage to heighten public awareness and made a website available for people to try to curb the issue. Those signs should be up soon. The town has received the Narrow River Dredging and Disposal Analysis Report final draft. Still needs there'll still be some changes made to it, but the report was received from Forth, and it's now approved for wider circulation. It's already in the hands of the council. Last week, I attended a briefing and a press conference announcing the governor's municipal road fund. The following is a summary. Under the program, each city and town provides 67% of the project cost, and the state matches the remaining 33%. The town, of the money that's available, each community, a city and town, will receive $128,000 each. The remaining $15 million that's available will be distributed proportionately based on the miles of roads in each community. We will be applying for that this week. We've already started. The town clerk's office has been inundated with APRA requests on a variety of issues. Clerk Taro and her crew do a great job meeting all the deadlines and filing the appropriate extensions. It's incredibly time-consuming, labor-intensive, and time-sensitive due to the legal deadlines. I commend the office for their diligence in this one of their many tasks. The Finance Department has also seen an uptick in this. It seems many people are looking for the I gotcha moment. We realize it's a government function, but we're simply providing documents that the town maintains diligently. We've received inquiries regarding the beach carrying capacity study. The questionnaires have, the process has started. There was a meeting last week with the vendor, and they had a drone over the beach, and they asked extensive questions of our staff. The study has approximately a 10-month timeline, so it should be completed next spring or possibly early summer. They will attempt to get the study done earlier. We stress the importance of the sooner is better if it's completed. I attended the Bay Day ceremony and press conference with Governor McKee as a host community, and it was a nice day. It was also the governor shared the opportunity to discuss the Learn 365 resolution that is on the agenda for this evening. The last 2 weeks, we've received quite a few kudos about town staff, and I'd like to share it because although everyone knows that they do a great job, it's nice when people take the time out. We received thanks for our EMS and fire department crew for some rescues that they performed. Jamie LeBrenton in the building official's office for being so kind and helpful to her residents. Stacy Gorman, our acting tax collector, nice, compassionate, and helpful to her resident. Larry Edelman, for being in the building official's office, for being efficient, professional, and helpful to residents. Nice to hear from these folks, and we're fortunate to have such staff. We also received kudos for beach staff, Joe Vinci, Brian Godogno, Deborah Rinaldi, Steve Chadwick, and the rest of the crew there. Caleb Sekel, who works with our information management, was awarded an Outstanding Professional Award from the GMIS, it's a professional government informational services organization, and he's invited to speak at their conference, and he gets a complimentary, all-expense-paid trip to the conference at no cost to taxpayers. Last week, we had an interesting visitor at Town Hall. We had a bat flying around the collector's office. The crew was a bit startled, but they were able to get the flying critter out without having any contact with our staff. Not something we see every day. Blessing of the Fleet Weekend. Thanks to all the staff and the volunteers from the Lions Club. What a great event, and the town staff from DPW, Parks and Recs, Police and Fire did a great job for the busiest weekend of the summer in Narragansett. There's some inquiries about the Lighthouse Inn parcel in Galilee. We continue to be in regular contact with DEM as recent as last Sunday. However, this is in litigation with DEM and PRI 10, and as such, the town cannot comment on pending litigation involving the state and a vendor or any pending litigation the town has with a litigant. And that's it for the week. Thank you.
That was a lot. Thank you for that update. And yeah, so we thank you very much to our town manager and the town staff for really kind of putting that signage out there for Middlebridge. I know there's a lot of advocates for coastal access, and it's a great opportunity for people to enjoy such a beautiful space this year, and you know, we'll revisit what we want to do with that space next year, but I hope everybody enjoys the space. I know I'll be going there and enjoying it as well, so thank you.
Eva, can I ask Jim one thing? Jim, I've had questions from people about what happened at the beach last Wednesday with the movie. Can you brief the town and also the decision why the town staff made what they did?
And there have been several incidents at the beach there were 7 incidents over 7 or 8 over 5 beach appearances where the police had to respond. Mostly juveniles, mostly non-residents, and they've been a good number of the crowd. Some of it wasn't necessarily, there were arrests made, but there were 20 or 30 kids, you know, roughhousing around, wrestling, pushing each other, while people were trying to enjoy the movie with their families. And it does raise alarm with people when they do that. Chief Partington, Michelle Kershaw, our Parks and Recreation Director, and myself, we discussed it. They made a preliminary decision on Thursday when I was out of town. I support that decision 100%, and between the 3 of us, I think we have about 75 years probably of public safety experience, and I think the decision is a wise one to cancel the next 2.
I agree. I thought it was public safety, so thank you for taking that action.
Thank you. I concur as well. I actually went to the Jaws movie, and I did notice that there's a lot of kids that come, and they're not there to watch the movie. And I know when people are there to watch the movie, and there's groups of kids there, and it's not that we're trying to not let everyone have fun there, but it is a public safety issue. So thank you for looking into that, and we'll address that at a future date. Thank you. So next on the agenda, it's the open forum public comment portion of our meeting. Again, open forum public comment is a time for any member of the public to speak on a topic not on the meeting agenda. A sign-in sheet is available to members of the public who wish to speak during open forum public comment and located at the table in the back of the council chambers. Speakers will be called in the order as they appear on the sign-in sheet. Before open forum public comment is closed, members of the public who did not sign up will be given the chance to speak. Speaking in a meeting during open forum public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Speakers are required to state their name and their address before speaking and are expected to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful fashion. The comments of citizens accessing this portion of the meeting are neither adopted nor endorsed by the body, but heard as requested. Mr. Tierney, who's the first person on our list?
The first speaker signed up is Dr. Al Alba.
Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. Dear town council members, town manager, town solicitor, and all honored guests. I hope you will reconsider and reverse your decision in not accepting the proposal by Narrow River Kayaks for the kayak concession operation on Middle Bridge. I live near Middle Bridge, and the praise that the users of Narrow River Kayaks has been nothing but exceptional. Not only did the people rent out kayaks, but the operators provided valuable information and safety protocol to all who rented. The owner, Jason Costadine, is one of the most respected and knowledgeable leaders in kayak operations in the entire state. On the Narragansett Town Council forum page, there was an overwhelming praise and support. In a recent poll, 94% of the people who voted opposed the Narragansett Town Council's decision to reject the Narrow River Kayaks proposal. I have attended many Narragansett Town Council meetings in my lifetime, and I can never recall when an amended motion or the original motion was voted upon by the council without the president asking the attendees or the electorate for their input on a matter either positive or negative. Yet this did not occur when the council members voted. Others and I left felt out. Procedurally, I don't think that's right. The motion to award the proposal to the highest bidder was made by Parks and Recreation, Michelle Kershaw. As has been customary for an RFP, the winning competitive bidder is awarded the bid unless there can be sound justification to do otherwise. The reasons presented by our council members to not award the winning bid to Narrow River Kayaks appear to me and other residents as a false narrative. Let us recall when the RIDM put out an RFP for the mixed-use development in Galilee, and the proposals were rejected. While the town's proposal was the most viable, it was rejected without consideration. In fact, Council President, you were so upset with the RIDM decision, you said, the RIDM caught the town of Narragansett totally off guard as the town manager and I were sitting down with the Director Gray just the other day, and we were not notified this would happen. Our Council President added, the Director and the RIDM did not even reach out to the town of Narragansett to see if we can modify or adjust our proposal. Yet in 2003, our town council has rejected the highest bid proposal for our town's RFP for Narrow River Kayaks without any sound rationale and without the willing to table the motion for any possible adjustments for the proposal submitted. While all council members have busy lives, they need to do their homework when the decisions that are directly affecting a person's livelihood. There were many false narratives that were noted by the members. Ms. Lawler said that we should amend the motion because there was only one proposal submitted. That was false. There were 4 bids proposed. Now one council member refuted Ms. Lawler's erroneous statement about only 1 bid this calendar year. Is it that they did not do their due diligence or they purposely lied? I don't know. This is troubling. You each have a fiduciary responsibility to make decisions for the town based on facts. Sadly, based on the recent motion, the council did not have the facts.
Your time is up. Next, who's next?
Ms. Lisa Gennard.
I had extra time. The time wasn't up. I saw I had 5 seconds
It's
left.
down to 0. Sorry.
No, it was 5 seconds. Can I continue?
No, you didn't. Next.
Hello,
Please state your name and address.
Lisa Gennard, 25 Redwood Drive. I'm continuing Dr. Albert's speech. Ms. Lola then said Eva received a message from the Land Trust and was concerned about the finance portion because they have the Middlebridge Enterprise Fund and used for the improvement of the Middlebridge property. If this is a true narrative, why has the town decided to now open the area up as a public space for kayaking with no revenue coming in? For a decision that will affect a small business person's livelihood and the enjoyment of so many who love going to kayak down the river, why did the NTC and the town manager not present factual information when deciding this motion? The town recently opened the space up for anyone who wants to kayak at the location. The problem is, like many, like me, do not have our own kayak. We therefore will have to rent one out. Also, to get a kayak at the location can be problematic as one will need to make arrangements with a kayak company to pick up your kayak and return at the set time. Narragansett already has 2 drop-off locations for those who want to drop off their kayaks for free, and there was one in South Kingston a short distance away. Therefore, the town has made it more difficult for someone like me who does not own a kayak to go kayaking down the beautiful river. Why? Ironically, the main concern of council members for rejecting NRK was because of the question of not receiving enough revenue from its operation, yet now we receive no revenue. This too appears to be another false narrative presented by our council members. I therefore am asking the council to reconsider the proposal of Narrow River Kayaks. As the paper clearly has explained to you, the misleading information each of you must have had or did not know about when you ruled against Narrow River Kayaks. Small businesses stick together, If what happened to Narrow River Kayaks can happen to any small business who puts in a competitive bid for a service, then this sets up a very dangerous precedent. Election time is only a short time away. If any of you are thinking about getting reelected, you may want to reconsider the motion you took regarding Narrow River Kayaks and now award them the bid. Would any of you vote for anyone who ruled as such of you did about your business if a town council presented to you in other misinformation? Should we re-elect any of you if this town council does not reconsider its previous vote on this motion? Thank you.
Council President, I
Thank
feel
you.
the need to, just to clarify something. When I changed the motion, it was because we only received one bid for the current calendar year, and that was from Narrow River Kayak. So that's the correction. Let's talk about the facts.
Not for the first year. Okay, next.
Mr. Tom Callahan.
Good evening. Madam Chair, will you be taking public comment before adopting the three-student ordinance on second reading?
No, there's second readings. We do
All
not
right,
take
so I'm
public
going to
comment.
address that issue tonight then, address that issue now. As you know, the decision to limit the three-student ordinances to the R10, R10A.
Can you just please state your name and
Oh,
address? I don't think you,
sorry.
yeah, sorry about that.
Tom Callahan, 26 Baltimore Avenue, Narragansett. The decision to limit 10 to this three-student ordinance, the application of this three-student ordinance to the R10, R10A, and the R20 districts eliminates that level of protection for the neighborhood that's comprised of Rhode Island Avenue, Baltimore Avenue, and Pennsylvania Avenue. I wrote to you prior what the problem was prior to the public hearing on the matter. I've spoken with most of you since then and appreciate the time that most of you have taken to understand the issues involved. As you know, the area was subdivided in 1910, 1920 in the era there into 500 plus 20 by 80 lots. Over the years, the facts on the ground have changed, the lots have been merged, but there are no lots that are in R80, size R80. There are no lots that are in R40. And that entire neighborhood, is being excluded. So our neighborhood lacks the protection that's being offered to others. The majority of the property in that neighborhood is rental. Much of it is academic rental, much of it is seasonal rental, and some of it is now flipping into Airbnb stuff. So it's further complicated by the proposed changes that, not the proposed changes, the changes that Speaker Shikashi's legislation will take in terms of the need not to seek dimensional variances going forward. So I noted with care the time that you took, Chairman, to read into the record the rationale for the decision that you were making last time. I like to see you table this action tonight to be sure that you have looked at neighborhoods like mine and to see whether or not they should be included. But I'm not naive. I understand the train is moving, and this particular car will not be attached to it at this point in time. So instead, I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask you to direct the town staff to identify areas like mine across the town of Narragansett by January 1st of 2024, and ask them to make a recommendation of whether or not they should be included under the ordinance going forward, and if so, to do so prior to the end of the 2025, by the 2024 legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list.
Mr. Dave Avedisian.
Hi, Dave Avedisian, 87 Woodward Ave, Narragansett. A couple weeks ago, I sent an email, I had a conversation with the town manager, and I'm assuming he forwarded it to you. I couldn't get into the beach lot on a Saturday. Past couple of Saturdays, it's been busy, and I work in the morning, so go to the beach at 2 o'clock is turned into an impossibility. I can't park on any of the local streets because, quote unquote, I'm not a resident. I am a year-round resident in this town, yet I can't get one of those valuable resident stickers that you've so gladly given to some of the select people in this town who live in the pier. I still can't understand why everyone in this town is not treated equally and why we continue to discriminate against everyone who lives outside of the pier. I should be able to park in any one of those pier side streets when the beach lot is full. I should be able to park on those side streets without having a person with Massachusetts plates give me grief that I'm not a resident. I looked at her and I said, "You have Massachusetts plates." Yet she has a resident sticker. The car behind my truck had Connecticut plates and had 5 resident stickers from the past 5 years stuck on it. Yet I can't park there. This seems ridiculous. And when I talked to one of the CSOs, I said, "You're gonna give me a ticket?" I said, "I'm only running in and running out." He's like, "No." I said, "What about this car over here that has a resident sticker, but it's not on the proper street?" Because those resident stickers are only supposed to be for the street in which you live on. No, we're under the impression we don't have to give tickets to those people that are on other streets. As long as they have a resident sticker, they can pretty much park on any street they want. So even further now, these residents that live in the pier get more and more privileges that I can't get and many other people in this town can't get. It just doesn't seem right. I sent the town manager a bunch of pictures, which I hope you got, and if you didn't, there are empty side streets all around the pier when the beach lot is full. Central Street, Boone Street, down close to Brown Street, Caswell Street near the police station, Othmore Street, Wanda Street, Kingstown Road. Why can't I park there if the beach lot is full? Why can't everyone else here who is resident in this town park there? It just doesn't seem right, and I can't understand the reasoning behind it. And yet I listen to other people who say they have handicap plates and can't get in there because the lot's full. Why not at least put some handicap signs up there? People that can park on the seawall. Instead of limiting people that can access the businesses in the center of town, give them a place to park and allow them to enjoy the very amenities and the attractions you keep saying you want people to come to, yet there's no way of accessing them. And I know I went over because you didn't start on time, so I'll finish there. And the one other thing I'd like to say is some of these people that are from Connecticut, from Massachusetts, from Florida, Arizona, that have these resident stickers, also like to put rocks in the street, cones in the street, and other sawhorses in the street to protect their street. It's not their street, it's our street. And that needs to stop too. So please go in a different direction and start treating all residents equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Mr. Justin Myers.
Please state your name and address.
Justin Mayers, 2 Complex Road, Kingstown, Rhode Island. Hello, I'm Justin Mayers. I'm from the Student Senate. I am the Risk Management Liaison of the External Affairs Committee. So that's why I'm here, because my constituents are affected by some of the moves that this council makes. In an attempt to not speak upon the agenda as you requested, I will speak on more general terms. I feel that the relationship between the URI students and this community could be much improved. Sorry, I'm nervous.
You're doing fine, you're doing fine.
I believe that there are some things on the agenda that pose a threat to our community in the way that we live, and it poses a threat to the economy of Narragansett as well. There are people that make income off of our residencies. There are people, their businesses make income off of our residencies. So I ask you moving forward to make decisions that keep the interests of students in good faith. My position has been newly created to attempt to give you the wishes that you've desired. I've heard from websites online that are unflattering to the URI community that apparently my constituents do not promote family values. As a risk management liaison, I'm here to make sure that the actions of my constituents stay humble, stay representative of the URI values, and stay as a benefit to this community. So tonight, when you decide your actions, I hope that you do it in good faith, as my position has been made in good faith, almost specifically to the Narragansett community, because I know that both sides can work on our relations between the long-standing URI community that has bolstered the economies of the surrounding communities and Narragansett. We have many problems within the URI community that we're trying to fix, such as our on-campus housing, and off-campus problems are making it really hard to accomplish and remedy the problems that we have within our community. So it's important to keep URI strong, so that way off-campus, we can keep the other communities strong. We are the future, and we are future residents of Narragansett, and we want the best for those communities. And in order to do so, we have to be able to thrive in the time at which we're learning to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great job. Next.
That is the last one that signed up.
Okay. Is anyone else wishing to speak that did not sign up? The ma'am in the back. I didn't see her. Just state your name and address, please.
My name's Lisa Beth Sanford. My address is 9 DeSano Drive in Narragansett. And I'm here because I really want you to think about what this ordinance is going to do, the student ordinance is going to do. I'm not talking about, but just think about it in the future. It's going to have a lot of repercussions to the town, not only for the people who are taxpayers, but for the students. That was an excellent speech, by the way. That was wonderful. And I think it's going to make different repercussions that we're not even thinking about. I also want you to think about putting in a grandfathering clause. When you make zoning ordinances, most zoning ordinances have some type of grandfathering clause in them. This one, from what I've seen, does not. I may be wrong, but I think that that is an important part of it. I've had my house for over 15 years. I've rented it to students. The person before me rented it to students. Never have we had a complaint. Never, and my neighbors look forward to them because they shovel their driveways, they get cookies to them. I tell them every year, please meet your neighbors. Please help your neighbors. And surprise, 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 they do. With that being said, I think it's important that we make sure that this, what you choose to do, and I know I'm not going to change any minds, your minds are made up. What you choose to do will have major repercussions, and I don't think you realize what they're going to be. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Next is, the time is now 7:30. We're going to have to go to our public hearing portion of the meeting. We'll be setting up. So first on the agenda, we have a motion to open and hold a public hearing for the purposes of considering zoning amendments to Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, entitled Zoning, specifically Sections 2.2, Definitions, 6.3, Prohibited Uses, and a new Section 7.22, Retail Sales of Marijuana. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion to open and hold the public hearing passes 5-0. Mr. DeLuca, would Would you like to discuss this? So
yes,
this
thank
is
you.
coming back. So this was at our town council meeting. So then, do you want to go over like the May 25th, 2022, the General Assembly adopted that, the Rhode Island Cannabis Act. So it made recreational use of marijuana legal, subject to local authorization. And then on November 8th, 2022, Narragansett voters passed a referendum approving the legal sales of cannabis and cannabis products. And then there were 25 other municipalities that approved similar referenda. And this came to the town council on June 19th. There was a revised draft, so it's coming back. The request was to change it from the business zone to industrial zone. So you can take it from there.
Thank you, Council President and members of the council. Jim, do I need to be sworn in? I know we had a change in policy here. Does it matter? No? Okay. As you all know, I'm Mike DeLuca, the Director of Community Development. And yes, we brought we meaning my staff, with the assistance of the building official and the assistant town solicitor, had drafted an ordinance for your consideration that went through the review, a review by the planning board who supported it. But then as we held the hearing on June 19th, as you mentioned, there was a difference of opinion, and it seemed to be consensus among the council that it was better to designate the retail areas for the sale of retail marijuana in the industrial zones, not in the business zones. So I've got a brief presentation for you, and I'll ask Dan to put it up on the screen. And it really is only, I promise you, it's 6 slides. It's 5 slides, actually. So in regard to definitions, there were no changes made. These are the definitions that we added. These were taken directly out of the state law, which I had referred to in my presentation before, the Rhode Island Cannabis Act. Rhode Island General Law 21-28.11. So no changes there. Next, Dan. What has changed is this is a graphic from our schedule of uses. And as you can see across the top, those are all the zones in town. R80 is residential, R40 is residential. You move over, the Bs are business zones, BA, BB, BC. IB and IA are industrial zones. We had originally suggested the marijuana retail facility to be allowed by special use permit in the BB, general business zone. Under your direction, we have changed that so that now that remains as an X. X is prohibited. And we've moved the S to IA and IB. So what that means in more less technical terms is that you would be allowed to have a retail marijuana sales facility by special use permit in the IA, limited industrial, or IB, general industrial zones. Special use permit, I would remind you, requires approval by the zoning board. It is not a by right use. Next page, Dan. So a few text changes. Oh, and it is not very readable. Okay. I used some bad shading. Top paragraph, we took out the general business zone, and what's in that blue block that you can't read is limited industrial zone and general industrial zone. In the paragraph down, A1, 500 feet, the marijuana retail facility must not be located within 500 feet from the property line of an existing public or private school. And what's in the highlight that you can't read is not including higher schools of higher education, meaning colleges. Down below, the bottom paragraph, setbacks for lots adjacent to, it says commercial zones or public zones. The little blue block says other industrial zones. So those are add-ins to the text. Next page, Dan. And thankfully, there's only a couple more things. On the left-hand side, it's just renumbering because at the top, you could see we eliminated A and B when we had proposed retail marijuana sales to be allowed in the business zones. We were suggesting that they be located within a 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile of Route 1, and that they have frontage on Route 108. We've taken both of those completely out. So those were A and B. So then it would be C, D, E, and F. We've relabeled those. That's what the little blocks on the left are, just relabeling. And the hours of operation, next to the bottom, we had suggested hours of operation 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The council directed us to change that from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's what it says there that you can't read. My apologies for the bad shading. That's all I have.
So,
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
yes,
Councilor
so
Sismark.
I'm going to apologize in advance, but the last time we looked at the ordinance, the draft, it had industrial, and Jill and Steve really supported to have the industrial, and I was too thinking about that. Since then, I completely understand the ordinance and the rationale behind it. I know that a lot of places around the state use the industrial zones. I've been to them myself in industrial. It's been a little congested up at that end, and so I've sort of changed my mind on that, and I apologize for the work. I think it was a recommendation of the board as well, so I'm going back to the original, for me anyway, the general BB, so I apologize, but I did do a lot of homework on it, and I talked to some people around the state, and I just think it's better located, the B&B near the Stop and Shop, as opposed to, at first I thought, it's tucked away, people, but then those retail people won't have the same opportunity as everybody else. It's closer to Route 1 if we ever did get a shop, so I apologize, and I was kind of concerned. I was going with Steve and Jill, which doesn't happen a lot, really. So I apologize to everybody for the work that you did on that. I don't know if you're in the same positions, but I just feel like it's fair to the retailer to be in the BB zone, and so I'm flipping on that. I changed my mind.
Okay, I understand.
Any other council members wishing to comment? Councilor Kopech? No. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, with nobody wishing to comment, we'll open it up to the public. So if anyone wishes to speak, Ms. Celeberto, I see your hand up.
Do you want to swear me in? I can swear myself in. I used to do it, but go ahead.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, and please state your name and spell it for the record.
Catherine Celeberto, Celeberto, 48 Earls Court, Narragansett. I have a question about the reduction to 500 feet. The medical marijuana law is 1,000 feet from a school, a church, a synagogue, a preschool, all of that. I question the reduction. And if we're going to go back to a BB zone, you're talking about somebody be able to open a retail marijuana shop on Boone Street, because we have areas on Boone Street, including that big lot at the corner of Rodman, that is more than 500 feet from the playground. I just don't think that's a good idea. I question the reduction to 500 feet. In the industrial zone, the reduction to 500 feet means that you can have a retail shop on Waltz Way, which is down the street from, the school. I mean, we have a problem everywhere. But, and my other thing is this, that there are no civil penalties. You're enacting an ordinance without penalties. Suppose somebody stays open beyond 5 o'clock, what's the penalty? Opens before 10 o'clock, what's the penalty? Doesn't get a special use permit, just opens a store up. What's the penalty? There are no penalties attached to this. You have to have penalties attached to an ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to comment on Dr. Alba?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. That's 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. Thank you. Yes, so I think Catherine, I agree with you. We agree on something. Maybe I'm not Narrow River kayaks, but I agree with you on this. I think you know, when we saw what happened, you know, with movies on the beach, and I know it wasn't. I guess town manager says it was from kids from the outside of our area, but still they're kids. And you know, I'd rather be conservative. You know, I'd rather be conservative in regards to making sure we dot our I's and cross our T's to make sure that, you know, if anyone's going to be opening up shop, the kids are going to be out of harm's way. And not only that, I also think if kids from a young age, you know, they're very perceptive. And if they see adults or maybe family members or even friends going to these shops, it might encourage them down the road to smoke cannabis. And I don't believe in, you know, ingesting, you know, I am guilty. I'll have a glass of wine once in a while, so I'm guilty of that. You know, that's a drug, and drinking a lot of wine is not good for you, but once in a while I engage in that. But they say it's good for the heart, for medicinal, so. But, and some people take the cannabis for medicinal reasons, for medical reasons. So I understand they take it for, you know, some people have glaucoma or to alleviate pain. But then they take it because the benefits outweigh the negatives. So any kind of drug, you know, you got to weigh the pros versus the cons. I was never in support of the criminalization of marijuana. I always thought it should be legalized because when I was in junior high school and high school, the kids had the joints. I mean, it was pervasive. But on the other hand, I would, if I had children, I don't have children, but if I had children, I wouldn't want to encourage them to be smoking it, you know, because I know it's a foreign substance and, you know, you put something into your lungs and, you know, I just don't think it's a good thing. You know, people can say I'm biased, but that's how I feel. So I think that, you know, if we can have people, if they are going to be setting up shop, have the shops put a distance away. You know, marijuana, I mean, sorry, Ann, cannabis, I don't want to hurt Ann Armstrong, who's a resident of Narragansett, but cannabis, it has THC in it, you know, and THC, as our police chief will tell you, you know, it can have an effect on one's cognitive ability. You know, it could give them a high, and it could create an altered state of mind. We have, when people are drinking alcohol.
Dr. Alba,
okay.
can I just redirect you, because this is just,
Okay,
when we are
okay,
speaking on,
okay,
excuse me, when you're
okay.
speaking on the motion, it's to,
Right, okay.
it's to consider zoning
So getting
amendments.
back to what Mrs. Alberto mentioned, I would definitely take all these into account and recommend that, you know, we err on the conservative side and have the shops opened up far enough distance away from the schools and whatnot. Thank you. And the
Thank
parks.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the zoning amendments for the cannabis?
I'd like to ask the attorney something.
Anyone else? Okay. Councilor Cicilline.
I just wanted to, could you respond to that distance, the 500?
Yes, so the retail only in state law is 500 feet, as opposed to the cultivators and the medical marijuana that was originally 1,000 feet. The reason why the medical marijuana was 1,000 feet is because some of the medical marijuana retail places also had a conjunctive cultivating a facility with it. So that's the reason why they made those at 1,000 and why the retail is now at 500.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Thank you. So there are no other comments from the public. I'm going to come back to the council. Does the council have any comments or? Okay. So this is, again, I will read the motion. It's a motion to open and hold a public hearing. So we don't have any comments. I actually will definitely comment on this. My concern the last time when we discussed this was that we didn't have anything on the books. So basically, if we don't have any ordinances on the books, Any cannabis shop can go anywhere. So I think it's important to get something on the books, and we can always address any issues or any changes in the future. So at this point, we can, I do have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a motion to open and hold a public hearing to consider zoning amendments to Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, entitled Zoning, specifically to amend the text and mapping of Section 5.5 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, entitled Zoning, for the purpose of adding a new historic district zone, 170 Clark Road, the camp. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. I will let Mr. DeLuca explain this one.
Sure, thank you, Madam Council President and members of the council. Well, I have a little presentation for you tonight. It's only 11 slides, a little bit longer than the first one. But the ordinance is proposed to add a new local historic district, the camp, which we know as the site of the town's Parks and Recreation offices, along with several other recreational facilities, to the inventory, and adopt a map depicting the entire site as its buildings as a new locally regulated historic district. This is a single property owned by the town on which resides the Parks and Recreation Department Administration Building, the Windmill Building, the Clark Center, and the Recreation Building. 3 of these structures date to a period in the first half of the 20th century. The Historic District Commission has researched this proposal, including conducting a workshop with the Historic Society in September of 2022. The Historical Society strongly supports the designation of the site as an historic district. The Historic District Commission also, at their November 8th, 2022 meeting, voted to recommend approval. Keith Lescarbo, who's the chairman of the Historic District Commission, said he was going to be here. Looking around. He made it. So I know he'll want to speak a little bit later on. But I'm going to show you a little presentation, and there's a little complication here. I'm going to walk you through it. So Dan, if you go to the first slide. So this slide depicts the land from an aerial photograph. I don't have a laser pointer with me, but you can see the tennis courts. Those are the blue, now they're pickleball courts. Those little blue rectangles. The Windmill Building is up in the north end. The office building is right next to the tennis courts. The building with the white roof is the Clark Center, and off to the left is the Recreation Building. The land was subdivided, and the 2 buildings you see off to the left, the L-shaped one to the far left and the one that has the yellow crosshairs going through it, are residential structures owned, constructed by the Narragansett Housing Authority. So the next slide shows the way the lot was subdivided, and you can see that now we have this little zigzag line that separates the residential structures on the left or the west from the recreational facilities on the right or the east. So just want to show you what these buildings look like. The next slide shows us the office building. This is where Michelle Kershaw and her staff work. There's a parking lot, and you can see there's a stone wall to the left of it. There's also a stone wall behind it, which is covered with a lot of shrubbery. The next picture shows the Clark Center. This is in the center of the site, one of the older buildings on site. Really kind of cool inside, for those of you who've been in there. The next building is the Windmill. This is right up on the road, under reconstruction at that time, and looking a lot better than it did just a year or so ago. And the final picture is the Recreation Center, one of the more dominant structures on the site. So Those are the four buildings. The only one of the four that does not qualify specifically as an historic structure is this one. This was built in the 1980s, and as you may recall, in the historic district regulations, for a building or for a property to be designated historic, has to have been built prior to 1950. That's the way our ordinance reads. The other three are all pre-1950 in construction. So the next slide shows what was proposed. This is where I want to take you through a couple of little changes in the perception of it. The proposal was to designate the entire site, and that is the site that the town owns with all four structures on it. But the planning board, as they do all the time with the zoning ordinance, reviewed this proposal, and they were concerned about the prospect that the Parks and Recreation Department may be hamstrung in one way or another if they ever wanted to build something new on the site. And that they would have to go to the Historic District Commission to get that approved. So there was some consideration of just making the buildings designated. Then there was an opportunity to give some thought to that. I had an opportunity to take a field walk with a member of the Historical Society who's also here tonight, and Ms. Kershaw. And we walked around the four buildings, and we tried to give some thought to the context of the building. And context is pretty important, because if you had a really beautiful historic building right next to a skyscraper, that building might look a little bit out of place. So we started talking and thinking about identifying land area around each of the buildings that would be appropriate to be designated. So the next slide shows what was discussed. And I really could use do you have a, nope, neither do I. Okay. All right, I'll do my best to describe the site. So looking at this aerial photograph, you see that we've got 5 red boxes there. And I'll work from left to right. The one to the furthest left is about 10,000 square feet of land identified around the recreation building, the last building I just showed you. Going to the middle of the site is about 20,000 square feet that surrounds the Clark Center. And I want to correct myself. I identified the white box as the Clark Center. That's the ice rink. The Clark Center is right next to it. Moving further to the right, the 12,000 square foot red box is an area around the administrative offices of Parks and Recreation. And the 20,000 square foot site that is attached to that is the land area surrounding the windmill. And the windmill, as you can see, it's a little round dot, is in the upper left-hand corner of that rectangle. On all 4 of these, the Historical Society was in agreement with us. On 3 of these, rather, the Historical Society has suggested that the 25,000 square feet that's outlined in dotted red outline should be added to the area designated historic associated with the windmill. The planning board disagreed with that, and that is why I'm showing you this graphic this way. So the planning board's recommendation to you is to not approve the entire site, the purple map that you saw a minute ago, as a designated historic district, but rather to approve this map as a hybrid where part of the site will not be designated historic, and the other parts, those areas inside the red boxes, would be designated so that all 4 buildings, the 4 major buildings on site, would be protected. A couple more slides very quickly. This is the way the text of the ordinance was advertised. And as you can see, we're identifying a new district, the camp. We have to give it a designation, so the map would be 5G. And then we have this text at the end that says, And I'll read it into the record, it's fairly quick. It is the intent of this section that historic property owned by the town of Narragansett within the boundaries of designated historic districts, as shown on the historic district map, shall not be exempt from the provisions of this section, with the exception that the camp be designated as a hybrid, regulated/voluntary district, in which the regulatory provisions of this section are limited in application to the 4 designated structures on site as of May 1, 2023, in their immediate environs as depicted on map XX. That would be 5G. Any alterations proposed for the remainder of the site shall be addressed under the voluntary provisions of Section 5. The next slide, I'm sorry, this is the same exact slide. What I was going to tell you, my apologies. The previous one isn't the one that was advertised. What was advertised was that the buildings themselves only be designated, not the immediate environs. So the last slide is what we're suggesting be changed, so that we identify the environs, meaning the areas within the red boxes. My apologies for putting up the wrong slide there. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the council or questions? Councilor Cicilline-Bonano?
So I agree with the planning board, I just have to say that, and I appreciate the explanation. And again, the historic districts are important to Narragansett, the buildings. I love the windmill, I love all the historic buildings. I like the parcel around it a little bit to preserve that piece, but I'm not in favor of taking all of that and giving it to the historic district. So I concur with the planning board's recommendation, so thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council? Councilor Kopech?
I have a couple of questions. The recreation building, you said it was not really old enough to fit into the existing ordinance. How do we deal with that?
Well, there are many structures in the local historic districts that are not historic.
Okay.
So what would happen, it would be treated as any other, what we call a non-contributing structure. It would still be regulated, meaning any exterior alterations would have to go to the Historic District Commission for approval, unless they could be approved administratively. But the building doesn't have to be changed into something that looks more historic. If, say, they wanted to add on to the building, they wouldn't need to put a big spire on it or anything of that nature. All that would happen, and what has happened before the Historic District Commission in many cases in the past with non-conforming structures, is that the commission ensures with the applicant that whatever additions or changes to the exterior being made will be in concert with the existing architecture of that building. So to reinforce that building's own personality, not to change it.
Another question I have is the 25,000 square feet that's in addition to the windmill building. What does that look like? I can't think of it off the top of my head. What does it look like right now? Is it just?
Okay, leave it right there, Dan. What it is it's the grassy area between the pickleball courts and the road.
Okay.
It's a big flat area. The line that you see that separates the 25,000 square foot crosshatched red box from the 20,000 square foot box around the windmill, that line is roughly at the berm, at the top of the berm. And the berm is about a 6-foot high difference in topography, the 25,000 square feet being lower and the 20,000 square feet being about 6 feet higher. So it seemed like a good break point.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Ferrandi, did you have any questions?
Thank you, Eva. The way I'm looking at this is, we kind of have a gem right there at that Parks and Rec area with all the different buildings, like you said, the pavilion, the ice rink, the log cabin, and the rest. And, I've been there on events the Christmas time events, some of the other springtime events, and, I think the situation is everyone thinks that there's so much extra property there to really do a lot with. But if you ever been to one of these one of the venues, and when there's been some crowds there, it really fills up pretty quick. So, I think if there's any changes made down the road as far as extra, a ball field or whatnot, there's an area in the back that's kind of long and narrow on that side. I know it's pretty wet down there. I think it would have to come to the council probably for a lot of variations anyhow. So I'm inclined to go with the whole area being historic. That's my opinion. And, now we have to, let's say we have the 10,000 square feet. I assume we're going to have to put that on paper and survey that 10,000, survey the other 20,000, and the rest, and considerable cost. So if someone really wants to knock everything down someday and put a big multi-service center or something like that and get rid of those buildings, I would think it would have to come to the council anyway. So I don't think it's that much of a deterrent to create the entire land, the historical section. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from the public before I speak. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go to the public. Ms. Siliberto?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, thank you.
And your name?
I'm Catherine Celeberto, 48 Earls Court, Celeberto. There is no other historic district in town that has chunks taken out of it. This is the most absurd proposal I've ever heard in my life. This smacks of political interference. It's pretty much what happened with Earls Court. That's why we're still a voluntary district. This is just absurd. Keith, I can't believe you're going along with this. Every other historic district in town encompasses the whole area. That's how it works. And this just doesn't make any kind of sense. It really doesn't. And again, there's a cost of surveying and all this, and then what are you going to do, put up markers, and this part's historic, this part's not. It doesn't make any sense. The goal is to preserve these type of areas in town and to keep them intact. That's not what you're doing here. And again, it's like no other historic district in the town. I oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alba?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island, 02882. I feel that, sometimes less is more. And if we're going to be all-encompassing and cover that whole area and say that it's all going to be historical, well, that could put undue restrictions. If Director Kershaw finds out that, we really can utilize this land for the benefit of the kids, or even the adults, for, whatever it might be, then, and we got that land available, and because it's been deemed a historical district, that could preclude, by the condition of it being a historical district, that could preclude our ability to use it most effectively for our town. So I think that we should definitely, yes, just those areas which have been determined for those buildings, so be it. But to just open that whole area, and then if it was already stated the Parks and Recreation office building, that's not even a historical building. So a lot of times, once these entire areas are deemed this way, then anytime you have to upgrade or make any kind of changes, you got to go through more procedural and more expenses for the town. And we don't need more expenses for the town. I'm sure Stan Wojciechowski will agree with that. Hope you're doing well, Stan. Okay, thank you so much. God bless.
Mr. Lescarbo, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to the community. And yeah, Keith Lescarbo, yeah. 2 Secluded Drive, Narragansett.
you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Swear to God.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I wanted to come in case you had any questions about how we operate, and of course, thank you for your community service. I think, to address some concerns, we all have, every individual here has some personal desires, but, we all have to realize there's a give and take, and I commend this council and historic councils. We've made a lot of progress in the last 13 years. We have about just under 4% of the town, the most important 4%, that's protected. And before that, all we could really do when they wanted to tear down Clark Farm and tear down Agawam Cliff Farm, all we could really do is jump up and down and make some noise, and eventually it would be torn down or developed. And I don't have to tell you about the many properties we've lost in Narragansett, the hotels, and due to fire and all of those things. So now only 96% of the town is subject to what anyone wants to do or what they can afford to demolish, to build big box houses or whatever they want to do. So we have this small percentage to protect, and we've done a lot of homework with staff at the beginning to identify those concentrations of important historic properties. And of those properties, we have some properties that are just homes, businesses, and then there are some like this, like the Sunset Farm and here, where we have working architecture. We have a campus. We have a site with a rich history of not only one building or one lot, but a whole campus of investment in architecture and management to create a working site or a working campus. So very important. And I think we were excited at the District Commission that the council was willing to preserve these buildings. A year and a half ago, the windmill was scheduled for demolition. And it's a beautiful building. The framing on that building is clear vertical grain. It's more finished than some trim work on some buildings. So it's a very well-built, strong building. We're planning to get blades on there to simulate the windmill true aspect. And it's just amazing when you come up from the east and the way that site projects out onto the way the road curves out into you, and you're coming up from the east to view that site, that windmill, when the blades are done and everything, it's going to be such an asset to the town and the community. So it's really been a group effort. A lot of people have contributed. The Historical Society has raised funds, and a lot of us had volunteered our time to, over the last year and a half, local contractors have stepped up. Davitt, Sweeney, Lawrence, have come in and volunteered their time and done work and showed up. So it's been a real group effort to get this done. And so I'm just glad that the town realizes that, and we're really ready to preserve that. And I really leave the details to you guys as far as what's the best way to go with this in the best interest of the town and the big picture that you guys have to deal with. Obviously, we're biased to preserving something special like this. But I also wanted to talk about how we work with people, because I think, some would say, oh, we're going to give it to the historic district, or we're going to put it under their jurisdiction. The way we work with people, in 11 years, we've had 2 applications that were denied out of hundreds. We work with people. We're an assistive resource. We get together. We have pre-applications where people come in and talk about what they're going to bring forward. We work with people. We give them resources. We have the NHDC, HDC, the Narragansett Historic District Commission House Doctor Consultant Program. We'll come out to your home, tell you how to deal with specific maintenance issues, how to help you get a project done, order of operations, budget, tradesmen. We're an assistive resource. Recently, we've had a tip of the month in the paper that we do to deal with specific maintenance issues for properties. So we work with the community. We have administrative approvals. You can come in and you can get an approval to completely side your house, roof it, and do the complete envelope with a 24-hour approval, with an administrative approval. When you do more major things, we require a public hearing. So if you want to put an addition on or change windows, you know, we want to see the same Mutton configuration, we work with you with that. We work well with people, and we don't just tell everyone what to do. We work together. So, as someone that's, you know, been involved in the construction management of for 23 years at the Towers, the Kinney Bungalow at the Sunset Farm, the Sunset Farmhouse, the rebuild of the North Pavilion, the South Pavilion, the Canaccia Club, I can tell you there's a lot that goes into this. And certainly it's more work for us or more on our plate, but it's something that we've all dedicated ourselves to and are willing to do. Now, if there's someone else that can do that or is willing to do that or has the time to do that from any agency, certainly that's good. But, you know, we're stepping up, and we welcome the opportunity to serve.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah.
I have one.
Councilor Sisson.
So I know the planning board made a recommendation of the hybrid. You are the chair of the Historic Commission. Did your committee get involved in any decision, or are you speaking individually, or you're?
Well, when the issue first came up, we met with Michelle. We had the Historical Society come in and talk about the rich history of the site with the orphans of Rhode Island, the Jewish orphans of Rhode Island, Camp Drury, all the rich history. And we, at that time, voted for the whole site, the whole campus, to be a historic district. And so that's what we voted on. We never, this is kind of a new thing of cutting off the corner. It's a new thing. But, you know, I think like Mike briefly talked about, as far as non-contributing structures, things of that would be new construction, okay? Those would be what we call non-contributing structures, non-historic structures. And we allow them. We work with people. We only ask that those new structures, and we have a lot of that. We had that at the Our Lady of Peace, where they built a new gymnasium and whatnot, auditorium, another project. And if the town wanted to put a building on that corner, the advantage of it being regulated is that we would work with you as far as helping with the design of that building. Certainly, engineering and planning staff are all taxed, and I think they would welcome the help to come up with a building with architecture that complements. That's the only, we have 76 very basic guidelines. And essentially what they say is, if you have a shingle building, you repair it with shingles. If you have a clapboard building, you repair it with clapboard. If you have brick, you repair brick. If you have granite, you repair. So in-kind repairs. Now, as far as contributing structure projects, like a new building, which I think is which is probably what most are concerned with in that area, the feasibility of a new building in the future, we only ask that it's compatible with the surrounding buildings. So we would want to see maybe a modern architecture, contemporary, large-type building right next to the windmill wouldn't make sense. So we'd accomplish the goals of the architecture, the necessary square footage, the volume, the working mechanism that works for the function proposed, within a traditional design that cohabitates and is comparable with the rest of the buildings.
So the answer is yes, your committee voted for the whole piece.
At the beginning,
yes.
But we were never approached with this.
But do you think that's a crazy idea, or do you like that? I mean, it seems to me as it's an alternative that works for everybody. You preserve the historic buildings that are, and you let Park and Rec do their business as well. So I don't think it's crazy. I think it's perfect. So I was just curious, as the chair of the historic, and we've worked a lot together, just
So
curious.
I'm grateful we're having this conversation. You know, like I say, 13 years ago, people could do whatever they wanted to do.
That's right.
We had no teeth. But I mean, that corner is important, and I think what Mrs. Celebrito commented on, like with the green at the Gibson Court, it's a volunteer
Voluntary
district, you know,
district, right.
and which is really like no district. So I would be in favor, and I would think my fellow members would be in favor of including that in the site so that we can, again, assist you with that, you know, like we've done with the towers and the bungalow and the farmhouse and the pavilions and all of that, so we can continue on this trend. You know, we really have a very, you know, not to you know, toot our own horn, but we have the most functional HDC in the state of the 17 that are out there. We're really out there with the people actively. You don't just come in and rub a stamp and go through a few hoops. We work with you, and we would do the same. And I would say that the council would have full authority on anything, I think, that's done on the site anyway. You know, I mean, let's face it, 3 votes, we're gone. So, you know, who's in charge? You know, we're just here to help the community and try to preserve a piece of it for generations to come.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public, or actually?
I'd like to
I'll
ask,
oh,
yeah, could you walk me, let's just say we decide to zone it all historic. Can you walk me through the process of what it would be like should the town council and Parks and Rec decide that they want to actually put another parcel there or change it in any way?
Right. So there's 2 options. You can come in, and if it is a complete new construction, it would require a public hearing. Okay? So now at that point, the public could weigh in, and you could bring the proposal forward. And one option would be to come in with a finished plan, but more desirable would be to come in for what's called a pre-application and discuss the concept. Before we go to the expense of full architectural plans, let's look at the concept. You know, maybe take a look at a few schematics, a couple of elevations of an idea, without a great investment into all the details, say. And we look at that, we work together, and we say, hey, oh, well, maybe this addition would be better on the side or in the back than right at the front door. Maybe if we do 6/1 windows in Mutton configuration, it would conform to the other windows instead of the big panes of glass. We would work together, give and take. And again, with any town properties, the town council would have final authority.
Okay.
We would just be there as an assistive resource.
So we wouldn't be locking ourselves into anything?
Nothing that you couldn't
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Or another person from the council in the future.
Right.
Because we might not.
3-2.
3-2, right?
Right.
That could all change.
Right.
So just to clarify, if we went with this option versus the entire plat, it turns out to be essentially the same thing, right? I mean, if we just took those 5 spaces and the rest of the space was free, then Parks and Rec and the town could,
Right.
could design something. If we did the whole piece, Parks and Rec could design something, and
With
no matter
our
what,
help,
with
our
your
help,
help,
right,
right. So
right.
that would be the
Right,
major
right,
difference, right?
Right.
Okay.
And the rationale between, really the whole rationale of doing the whole site is that these buildings are all together, they're not individual buildings. You know,
Right.
they're buildings that complement each other for the use of the facility as a whole, as the whole campus. So having gaps in that could affect the overall site and the overall facility.
But the space that's available, amongst those buildings is pretty minuscule compared to that part that.
Right, there really isn't much to consider
Right.
between the pieces, so I don't know that it makes sense to break it up. But again, we respect and appreciate, whatever decision you make.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superb. Anyone from the public? Mr. Richard?
you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you state your name and spell?
My name is Stephen Richards, that's spelled with a V, 91 Inez Street, Narragansett.
Thank you.
First of all, the first thing I want to say is that I think that it's wonderful that the Historic Society has made Shirley Easton's dream come true with that building. I think that's a wonderful thing, and I think they've done a great job of remodeling that building, and that's a positive thing for the town. So I certainly want to get that out of the way. So next thing I want to also say is that I lived in a historic building. I got it on the National Historic Register. I lived in one of the more famous buildings in the town of Narragansett for 34 years. And we held fundraisers there at our house for the Historic Society on, I think, 2 or 3 occasions. Many of you may have been through my home. One of those meetings, or one of the other 15 or 20 times that my wife and I had opened up our home for tours for the benefit of the town. So we're certainly all in favor. My wife and I are strongly in favor of historic districts and historic buildings and historic things. So I want to get that out of the way. But I also want to make a clear point that there isn't a historic building on that site. There's not one that's National Historic Register building. Not one. The building they just remodeled is a wonderful job, but it's not an historic building. There's no historic building on the site. Now, the community center, built in 1984, what's the value of that as a historic building? The town Parks and Recreation building, it's just an average building. There's nothing special about that particular building. The windmill building, I think, if you want to create the windmill building as it to preserve that, then that's fine. But why would you want to create anything else other than that particular building if you needed to give them 20,000 square feet so nothing could be built next to them? Maybe that makes some sense. But the rest of it doesn't make any sense because there's not a historic building on the site. There is nothing value as an historic value to the site. There's been nothing that's been said here tonight that establishes the historic value of the site. To prevent the town, to give the town another layer of having to go through various different things to create what you want to do, that property was bought for parks and recreation. It wasn't bought to preserve his Camp Jury or anything else about the site. That's why they put the apartment buildings up there. That was, they have done nothing. There's nothing to establish, not one single thing to establish the value of an historic site that was a National Historic Site value. Nothing. Now, so to make the town and to hamstring the town for the future about that site, which you might want to do things in the future on that site, which would prevent us to do something, or they say, well, there's really nothing they can stop you. That's not true. If you give it to the Historic District Commission, you also have to have their approvals. Yeah, you can place the members, you can do this, you can do that. But as in reality, this is putting in an administrative value, public hearings and other stuff for the town value. If you're going to create something out there, it's for the town residents. It's not for the specific views of us people who like historic buildings. And I love historic buildings because I lived in one for 34 years. So I think that that's an important thing to understand, is if you're creating a historic district, it should be for historic district. It shouldn't be town property. It should be like they do in Gibson Avenue, like they did in Earl's Court, like they do in other places in town where they have a historic district. There's a lot of historic homes. There's National Historic Register properties. There's a value to protecting the town's historic treasures. There's a real value to protecting the town's historic treasures. But there isn't any value for creating an historic district without historic buildings. I mean, it's obviously an oxymoron. It doesn't make any sense to create a historic district when there's nothing of historic value, no historic buildings, nothing on the historic register. If that building if they want to get the building on the historic register, then do it. Now you actually have an historic building that you want to preserve. But to take the whole area and to diminish the town's value for that whole area doesn't make sense. It doesn't. There is not one single reason anybody can give me that I've heard tonight that establishes why they want to do this. And so that, if you have a reason to do it, then establish the reason to do it and vote on that reason. But just because they've renovated a building doesn't make them to give it a historic district to the whole area. It doesn't. So that's the key point, is it was bought for Parks and Recreation. It was bought for the town residents, and anything that restricts that is not in the best interest of the town residents, that you're going to hamstring people in the future from doing something for the town, not for the historic district or the historic district commission or anybody like myself who would support the town's district's commission. I would support, if those buildings were historic buildings, I'd be all over it. Believe me, I tell you, I'd be all over it. I would, because I've done it for myself. I did it. I got it on the historic district, my home, on the National Historic Register. So I spent the tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars to restore that building to the historic value. They did not. They renovated the building. Perfect. I think they did a spectacular job. But they renovated the building. They didn't make a historic home or a historic building. It's not. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back.
Would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And could I have your name and address for the record?
Michael Schuster, SCHUSTER, 85 North Cliff Drive, Narragansett.
Thank you.
And I'm here speaking on behalf of the Camp Jory Board, of which I was the past president from 1996 to 2006, and worked with Maury Lucians on the transfer of ownership of the property. And at that time, it was agreed that the property would never be put on the market. It was never marketed, although we had proposals from a number of developers that would have gladly built tract housing in that area. And our board didn't want it to be that way. We understood that once we transferred ownership to the town would, and its governance processes would control what went on. But the hope, and we built our new camp in South Kingston with support of the Champlin Foundations, the hope was that this would remain as recreational and open space property. I want to take issue with the previous speaker that there's no historic value here. This was the home of the Jewish Orphanage of Rhode Island. The winter headquarters were at the Miriam Hospital, and the summers were in Narragansett. That property was purchased in January of 1937. The camp began in 1937, and it continued till we left Narragansett in 2002. After World War II, or actually just before the end of World War II, orphanage care went out of vogue with aid to families with dependent children, and there was a switch to foster care. The Jewish orphanage then was sold to the Miriam Hospital to create what is now the Miriam Hospital building. That front building that you drive up to was the Jewish orphanage. I want to make sure that introduced into the record, because it does reflect historical significance, is an article from the Providence Evening Bulletin, Thursday, July 18th, 1948, noting that refugees from the concentration camps coming back from Europe were housed at Camp Jory. And in particular, there was an article about this young man that came, his brother, his two brothers, his mother, and his father were all killed by the Nazis. He survived by escaping and was brought to Rhode Island along with other refugees during that period. The camp continued its rich history as one of the only remaining orphanage organizations in the United States. To date, we know of only one other, which is in Florida, and we actually bring children up from Florida to be part of our camp here now in South Kingston in the summer. The building that's, I believe, now called the Community Building, I want to make sure I get the names right, not the one that was built in the 1980s, that was the old dining room, but the original building, that dates to 1937. That was the dining room, social hall, housing for staff of the camp. And that one right, yeah, just went by. Also, if you could go back to the map, I think the other one that had the pictures, if you look at the most southerly portion of that property, that's all wet. I've walked that so many times, you need boots to go in there. We explored using that for many times, and we would never have been able to get DEM approval for anything in there. And we know that because the land was surveyed after it was purchased, and the National Guard actually came in and did the clearing, and then the Carty Corporation came in and built what was then the tennis courts and the ball fields and all of that. The area that's in front of the what's now the town administrative buildings, that is also wet. It's not quite as wet as the southerly portion, but that's wetlands as well. By the end of the summer, it does tend to dry out, and we used to run some activities down in there. I couldn't tell from the picture what was happening with the flagpole. That is another historic structure. I have a picture for the record of the children who were not yet citizens of the United States every morning saluting the flag and pledging allegiance to the United States. The wishing well that's also adjacent to the old dining area, that was providing well water for the camp and has incredibly beautiful stonework. Both the flagpole and the wishing well have incredibly beautiful stonework that has held up nearly 100 years now. So, I'm not going to comment on whether it should be the whole property or what's proposed by the planning board. That's your responsibility to make that decision. I will, in summary, say that this is a very historic piece of property. Our alumni continue to come back to visit, even though they know that all that's really left there is a few of the original structures. They'll come back and say, "Where was the cabin I slept in?" Well, that's been taken down. But they do remember the old dining room. The last of the orphans, of the original orphans, has recently passed away. But the campers that went there in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, I put myself in that category, all typically do in fact visit the site. And most of the land that is not, that would not be preserved here isn't of any use anyway. As I said, it's all wet. Thank you for your time. I don't know how you want me to introduce this into the record, but
Thank you for that background.
Thank you, well done. Great information.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this public hearing? Oh, Dr. O'Neill.
Will you raise your right hand, please?
It's Robert O'Neill, and my address is 22 Stillman Road in Saunderstown. And I previously lived for 40 years at 560 Ocean Road, where we also have a National Register property. I'm the Vice President.
Excuse me, would you raise your...
Oh, I'm sorry. I do swear.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I'll try and be very brief. I think that Mr. Schuster's presentation demonstrates the significance of that particular aspect of the Camp Historic District. The windmill building, which we've been fortunate enough to have a wonderful lease from the town, that served as the nurses' quarters and infirmary when the Camp Jury bought it in 1976. Just like the camp itself, which is the early 1930s, that land was purchased from the Clark family heirs. That's why it's Clark Road. That farm actually goes back to colonial times. It was really, as best we can tell, one of the plantation farms. But in any case, where we are from our perspective as a historical association is that we appreciate that the property is not 100 years old. But the uniqueness of it and the fact that we're now approaching 90 years for both the camp and for the windmill building, along with the fact we have one of the more distinctive properties in the community. There are only 7 windmill buildings in Rhode Island. 3 of them are intact. One's in Jamestown, 2 are over in Middletown. The other one's our house, which had a windmill on top of it at 560 Ocean Road. That went down with the storms. There's one Longfellow's windmill that's on Division Street in East Greenwich. And then we have one over in Toro Park, which has many attributions to it, but basically it was an early windmill building for grinding. So the fact that we have a unique building, the fact that we've taken the time and trouble to restore it, and the fact that we will have the windmill back on it, puts it in kind of a unique, separate category. Is it something comparable to one of the mansions in Newport? Hardly. But it is unique to Narragansett, and there aren't any other towns that have this conglomeration, this combination of historic camp, a historic windmill building. And I guess when we first got started with the whole project, and Keith's group, the Historic District Commission, were interested and proposed the development of this historic district, their understanding of it is that it was going to be the entire parcel as designated by the black, I guess, outline. And to my knowledge, the Narragansett Parks and Recreation Commission understood that that's how the property was going to be developed as a historic district. And they're completely in favor of that idea. And to be honest, they really didn't have any idea that now the planning board is suggesting that it be kind of piecemealed and broken up. The concern, and it's a legitimate one, is there going to be some sort of a restriction, I think that Keith outlined, is that ultimately you're the arbiters of that, is that even if it's part of the historic district, it's not a finality that somehow or another you're going to be terribly limited in choices there. To my knowledge, and I guess you have to address the question to Michelle Kershaw, is she troubled by the idea of having the entire parcel included in this historic district? Because if the Narragansett Parks and Recreation Commission isn't troubled by it, and the director of Parks and Recreation isn't troubled by it, it's hard to understand why the planning board is troubled by it. But again, you're the folks who make the final decision, and I hope you'll take into consideration all of these aspects and the fact that, as Keith pointed out, the Historic District Commission is an advisory board. It's not something that insurmountable somehow in terms of a resistance force for change. It wants to work with it. And I think we all know that a lot of properties have been lost, as Keith pointed out. Anawan Farm is a perfect example, but even the property that's right next to Jake's Way, which is where the lovely condo development is opposite the windmill, there was a lovely old original farmhouse there that just got demolished because there wasn't a review process for it. And that Clark Road only became Clark Road in about 1888. It didn't run all the way through from 108 to Ocean Road. Ocean Road didn't go down there other than as a dirt path. But that property, when the town purchased it, not enough thought was given to that, and they literally demolished one of the older buildings in town just because it was in disrepair. That's a terrible philosophy that Narragansett had to struggle with. I mean, the character of Narragansett has changed in the 40, 50 years now that I've been there, and maybe that's inevitable, but at least it can be a refined evolution rather than a dramatic, drastic change where we lose buildings that mean something. What's only 90 years old now soon will be 100 years old. How important are 100-year-old structures like the dining room for Camp Jury, which, as Mr. Schuster pointed out, is really one of the special camps in the whole country, not just in Rhode Island, not just in New England, and part of it is still there. I hope we can keep these things, and I don't think it's so much of a burden if the parcel in toto becomes part of the historic district, and having it fragmented like that looks awkward. When I'll just have one more few sentences, is that when we were developing the process of restoration of the windmill building, we went to Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission up in Providence and he discussed, I listened, is that with Mr. Emity, who is an acting director, but now is the director of the commission, and it was presented, again, with that property in toto becoming this historic district. And his comment was, from their perspective, that would seem to work best, but once again, deferred to, it's really the town council's decision. And I hope that, you've had an opportunity to reflect on the choices, and whatever you decide we'll live with, but it's not just us, it's 20 years from now, it's 50 years from now. So I thank you very much, and if there's any question, happy to answer it.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none. Any last comments from the council?
I just wanted to ask Steve a question about the agreement that the town has with Park and Rec for that parcel, that Clark Road. Have you looked that over, and is there anything that restricts a decision that any of the council, this council or future councils can make?
When you say agreement, there's a
Well, the agreement
lease.
that he was talking about where we purchased got the property.
Oh, the deed didn't have a restriction in it regarding that.
Okay. So it
But
could
when you
change-
said there's a lease on the property for the windmill, which is a different agreement, but there was no covenant in the lease, there was no covenant in the deed to restrict development, which is why we have the affordable housing there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we just need to come up with some sort of consensus. Councilor Kopech.
Two questions. So the parcel itself now has no restrictions on it? It could be developed if we wanted it to be? You're saying?
It's town property, so, it wouldn't be, you can't convey it to
Anybody else? Okay. so
Gilbane or
that's good.
whatever, but
And
correct.
the property that is not developed, the implication was that that's largely wetlands, is that correct?
That's a Mike question.
Mike, is that correct?
I love it when he points at me.
Well, I don't do wetlands, so.
You don't do wetlands. Yes.
Specialists.
What I guess was it Mr. Richards? Someone mentioned that the area was wet.
Yeah.
We actually do have a copy of that map, and the wetland line roughly approximates that that line you see of the forested area behind the pickleball courts. It may be a little bit south of that, but not much.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of developmentable space in that entire area,
South
right?
of the pickleball courts, not
Yeah.
much at all.
All right, thank you. It's good.
If I may, I did want to respond to Mr. Schuster, one of Mr. Schuster's comments, since I'm here. Just briefly, he asked about the flagpole and the wishing well. They are both incorporated within the 20,000 square foot rectangle that is surrounding the Clark Center. Just wanted that as a point of information.
Thank you. Any other council members? Council Lawler?
I was leaning toward the historic, but Mr. Schuster put me over the top for that, so I think the entire property should be historic zone.
Any other council members wishing to comment? Because we need to give some direction. That's kind of what we're here for.
As I
so
stated
Councilor-
before, I'm in favor of making the whole area historic, so I'd like to entertain a motion to
We're just doing, there's no,
Can't do
yeah,
that.
so we're
Still in
just.
the public hearing, though.
Yes, the public hearing, we don't have to make a motion. We're just, I think it's gonna, there's no first reading. So I think we just our input and feedback is gonna go back, and then we'll see it as a first reading coming up. So that's why it's important to kind of get the feedback out to, getting the feedback out from the council. So I have a couple council members who want to make the whole entire district, and anyone else wishing to comment, so that we can direct the staff
I
with
mean,
the ordinance.
I like the park and, I mean, I like the park and rec piece, and I like the historic piece, and I think what the planning board recommended really fits nicely for me anyway. I mean, I think it represents both, so I don't think the whole parcel should be historic. I think it's against why we have that park and rec facility. I think it has to mirror both.
Okay, so I also support the planning board recommendations to just kind of carve that out and just have the buildings, some of the buildings and some of the surrounding area. So I think that's, I'm trying to, I don't know if that helps Mike or
I
not.
think I do too, but I also think I would include that 25,000 square feet as part of the windmill complex.
Say that again?
Well, so if I remember, unless I got this wrong, I think the planning board wanted just the buildings, not the dotted line area, the 25,000 square feet was not included in their recommendation, unless I
That's their hybrid, yes.
misunderstood that. So I would say, I would absolutely agree with that plus the 25,000 square feet. I think it makes a lot of sense. It really manages the area that is, in fact, in my mind, historic. I do think that, history, timeframes for history can be manipulated in a million different ways, and but this has really special significance historically in the town and for the United States, really. So that's what I think.
Okay, any other comments? Yes.
So what was kind of the final consensus on?
Good question.
I know, it's
And Mark just whispered in my ear. So if there is no consensus, we should keep the public hearing open. If you're going to accept the planning board recommendation, then you can close the public hearing.
Right.
I thought there was consensus. It sounded like Deb,
Yeah,
Eva, and I agree with this hybrid,
I think
with
Eva does too.
adding in that
Yeah.
one, so that would be consensus of 3.
So I'm sorry, Deb, I thought you said the 25,000, which I took as.
Which is not part of the planning
Which
board
is not
recommend.
part of the
Yeah.
planning
Okay,
board.
so
So I.
can
yeah.
we, did you disagree or agree with that?
I was just going to go with the planning board recommendation. I'm open to, just any
modification?
any modification.
That would be my modification, and if the three of us would agree to that. So Steve, do we have to,
Yeah, so
What do
if
we
it's
have to
going to
do?
be modified,
We
yeah,
have
so
to-
if it's going to be modified, we should keep the public hearing open and then get, because right now.
oh, then that has to be, we have to redo the,
Well, no, we wouldn't, if we keep the public hearing open and there's a modification while the public hearing is open, then we don't have to re-advertise or anything
Okay.
Right, so and does anyone have, in the public, so I understand what you're saying?
Yes.
Have any feedback or want to speak on this proposed, modification, which includes that dotted line area in red, which is the 25,000 square feet that Councilor Kopech had recommended to be included, and that's additional to the planning board recommendation.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. Again, this makes zero sense. There is no other historic district in town where there are pieces chopped out of it, and only those pieces are historic. This is just a diversion from everything we've ever done. If you're going to do something like that, chop off the wet area. I don't know. Why would you? You're talking about little pieces of space in between buildings. You're going to put up fences? Is that what you're going to do? What's going on here? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Again, this is political interference, pure and simple. But you're destroying something that you could preserve. You could preserve this whole parcel, and you're choosing not to. And it makes zero sense why you wouldn't.
I just want to say, I think that it's a great point to include the 25,000 because it kind of stabilizes that approach to the building and keeping that open green. And I think it all goes back to the intent of the property is for recreation. And I think that gives an open field there. And again, if anything is contemplated, we would get to come in and talk about it and see what would best fit that site. So I think the 25,000 square feet is a great idea to keep that in there as well.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And your name?
Charlene Riley Paskoski, 16 Cove Road, Narragansett,
Spell your last name, please.
Paskoski. I'm so grateful that Mr. Schuster gave us that enlightening information about the history of Camp Jory, and I am in total agreement of taking the whole space and turning it into historic. I'm not sure of the total definition. I'm sure we have experts here, but Mr. Schuster's statement was enough to convince me that it's a very valuable piece of property that we need to keep anything from happening to it in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Richard?
It's interesting because I think that there's, the property over there, I'm not sure this map makes it makes a lot of sense. I just don't know if it makes a lot of sense. But what I do know is that, when you say that Camp Jory, Camp Jory is, I don't disagree that Camp Jory was a valuable thing to the town. I don't disagree with that at all. But I do disagree with the thought process that the buildings there, especially the 12,000 square feet that serves as the park and recreation. I don't know what have you ever been in that building? There's not really, I wouldn't call that a historic building. I do think that, for example, I like the log cabin. I really like the log cabin. I think that's a beautiful building. I think I would like to see that preserved. I don't know about the other center building over there with the 25,000, with the 20,000 square feet, 10,000, whatever that community center is. I don't know what the historic value of that is to the town, to Camp Jory, to anything of the town. I don't know what the land value, or taking all of that land, the 20,000 square feet with I just said the building makes sense. The building makes sense. There's the window, building makes sense. You're not going to ever destroy that, because if you take the 20,000 square feet, it's always going to be visible from the property. It's always going to have a value to the property, and it's going to make it nice. But the town, this is for the town residents. I don't understand that aspect of it. I don't understand how you could restrict the town residents from doing what it is that they want to do in the future on a piece of property that they bought as town recreation and open space. It doesn't stipulate what's open, it doesn't stipulate that 25,000 square feet was open space. It doesn't stipulate that anything over there was open space. It doesn't stipulate anything. It says that the town bought it for recreation and open space. What you have here is one small piece of property that's really recreation. That's the pickleball courts there at the bottom. That's what you have for town recreation. That's the only piece. That little skating rink up there, which is hardly ever used. But that pickleball facility down there at the bottom is the singly most used town recreational facility in town. There's more people who play pickleball on that pickleball facility property than any other facility in town, and yet it is the smallest space in the town. It's the smallest space, and nothing has been done to fix up those pickleball courts, nothing has been done to do anything to those pickleball courts, and nothing has been done since it's been resurfaced many years ago, several years ago. And now it's in terrible condition. The courts are in terrible condition. So you're asking, saying you want to do all of this area, and you say, well, it's open space and recreation. That's what the town bought it for. You are not doing that. You're trying to restrict the town for open space and recreation. That's what you have done. And that is just absolutely antithetical to the process of what the town is buying or bought that property for. Camp Jury, when they sold it, they didn't sell it with restrictions. They didn't sell it with covenants. They didn't sell it to preserve it. If they cared about preserving it, they could have put the restrictions in it before they sold the property. But they didn't do it. There's not a single reason for that to be decided to be open, to be preserved historical space. If the town of Jury, Camp Jury, if he wanted to do it, he could have done it, but he didn't do it. So why is it, so it's all of a sudden it's important to him to do this? I don't know why, I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to denigrate it. The building in the 20,000 square feet, that makes sense. The rest of it makes no sense. You can do, if you want to do the 20,000 for the log building, I don't care about that, but because it's a nice building, it's a really cute little building. And someday that might be a historic building, someday. So yeah, you want to do something like that, but the rest of it, there's no value. And you bought the town property, and that's what it's done for. There was no covenants, there was nothing to set forth to do something like that. And what you're trying to do now is to hamstring the town for what it could or might want to do in the future for its residents. And that is not something that really is a very smart idea.
Any other members of the public wishing to comment? Dr. Alba?
Swearing again. Okay, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. So I have two people who I have great respect for, Keith Lescarbot and Director Michelle Kershaw. And one is one of the best architects in the United States of America we're blessed with. He's done so much work on the towers, historical sites, and everything else. So I have a lot of weight and value on what he says. I also respect Director Michelle Kershaw, who was our Director of Parks and Recreations. So maybe, we can consult with both of them, have them meet, and get their input. I know we got Mr. Lescarbot's input, and we do have a historical site there. They said it's one of the few buildings with with that significance, and, I guess there's only seven, can't recall the exact amount, but seven, 8 windmill buildings like that. We invest a lot of time, and we wouldn't want to have a McDonald's be put up there, or we want to have some other kind of, we want to have some kind of, I don't know, probably a skateboard park put in that area, I think we should consult with Director Kershaw. Ask for her input as well. And, maybe there is a compromise, And so I don't know if Director Kershaw would like to speak or address the podium and get her input, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, so coming back to the council, anyone wishing to change their stance on it? We're trying to come up with a consensus here for direction for the staff. I mean,
So what do we have to do to?
just so we have to, I actually would prefer not to have that dotted line, but to have consensus, I will. Because I'd
go with what we have in front of us tonight.
Okay.
So there's there's a planning board recommendation, and then it's the whole parcel, or the whole area.
So what is the consensus on, including the dotted line area in, that the three of you agree on? Including that dotted area in?
I prefer going without it, but to reach consensus, because I believe Councilor Kopech and
Susan's
Councilor
with you.
Sicily
No,
Bonanno.
I'm agreeing with Ever. I'd
Yeah,
rather
I thought you
adopt
were.
what we have up here.
Okay,
So
that's fine. I
Without the dotted line?
Yes.
Okay.
with
So
the recommendations in front of us.
so the recommendation of the planning board is what we would be receiving and accepting.
So
Correct, Mr. Masala? Yeah. So the way that we have this on the agenda is the planning board recommendation is, after we close the public hearing, it's accepting the planning board recommendation, which is, if you look up at there, besides that little dotted red area, that's the recommendation of the planning board. So those 4 red boxes versus the whole black area.
So you're going to be ignoring the Historic Commission and the Historic Society and Parks and Rec recommendations for the whole, to honor the planning board? Okay.
That was, no, I believe the Historic District Commission was,
Kind of
yeah,
highlighted.
they just want something.
Yeah,
It's-
Well, they wanted the whole thing, but I
Right.
believe that what
They-
Mr. Lasko
they
both said.
commented that they were satisfied with the green dot, so I think. they were
Okay,
kind
so
of in the middle.
actually, hold on, Mr. Tierney, so I was under the impression that, this is for Parks and Rec, so it's not taking the whole area, and just for staff, from the staff, I thought the staff would want there to be, an opportunity to do Parks and Recs, stuff without those parcels, or the rest of the parcels. Did I not understand that correctly?
I will defer to the 2 town council appointed boards for the council to consider their recommendations.
That doesn't help.
Well, and also the Parks and Rec Board, although they didn't take a vote, they spoke about it with the whole historic composition as favorably. We have Michelle. We can ask Michelle to come up if we'd like. She's right there in the corner, hiding.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't think she's hiding.
Well, I always defer to, it's like we have a town manager who we defer to during these meetings. If Ms. Kershaw would like to come up and give feedback, but we do have recommendations from 2 boards. And, we've had the public hearing, and so we can kind of decipher from the conversations we've had, or, the feedback that we've gotten from the public, which direction we would like to go.
Maybe we should, I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, just for clarification, I know we had talked about, there was talk of the dotted line, it's not included now. There was talk about the dotted line being included by Deb, and I thought there was some sort of consensus, maybe not at that point, and then when we came back, there was consensus to take the dotted line off, so that's where we're at. The dotted line is not included in there.
The planning board's recommendation, it's not the that was the planning board's recommendation without the dotted green line. So we're,
I
again,
understand
following
that.
the
It's a
board
red
below
line.
us with their
There was-
recommendations, clearly.
So it might be helpful, just to make the point that the planning board's rationale, maybe people haven't read it, to just include the 4 buildings was in order to make it possible for Parks and Rec to have more decision-making capability for all of the additional land, if in fact they wanted to use that land for parks and recreation. So to me, that does make sense. I thought that adding the 25,000 could have some benefit to the windmill building, which is of interest to me, but not for any political reason, just because history's interesting to me. But so I understand what that point was, and it does make some sense. It's almost moot, I think, because so much of that land is actually wetlands and can never be developed anyway. But there is some other land that might be able to be developed for Parks and Rec purposes. So, you know, I can go either way. I was just thinking about the Historical Society. So.
Right, and so that was my rationale too as well. So we want Parks and Recs to be able to,
Yeah.
do.
I mean, that
But
makes
they don't
sense.
feel hindered, though. Parks and Rec does not feel hindered by the historic area. I know the one thing that I spoke to Dr. O'Neill about today, the Historic Society was looking for an added green area,
Yep.
or where the 25,000 space is, to actually be able to have more historical events and things like that. But I did speak with the director of Parks and Rec, well, through an email today, because she was busy with the beach, but they are in favor of the historic. So just in case anybody wanted to know her opinion.
Okay, so we actually, with the conversations that we've had up here, we do have a consensus from what I understand, and that is going with the planning board recommendation. So that's going to be the consensus. And so that's going to close the public hearing. So do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
A
Susan,
second.
well, let Susan make it.
What?
So if it's-
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion by Counselor Cicilline Bonanno, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, Mr. Masala, so we're just going to move forward with this, okay? Because is a motion to receive and accept the Planning Board's recommendation in regard to an amendment and text and mapping of Section 5.5 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett entitled Zoning for the purpose of adding a new historic district, Zone 170 Clark Road, the Camp.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Counselor Cicilline Bonanno, seconded by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Did not think that was going to take that long, but thank you everybody for the feedback and the information. Thank you. Okay, next we'll move. Before actually move to consent agenda, I know there was one hand that was raised before I had to go to the public hearing. And I know that was Ms. Salberto, so if you still wish to speak, I think you're the last hand.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I just want to thank Steve for keeping the area around the water tower on Earls Court neat and the grass cut. And he pulls the weeds from the lower level of the tower because I can't reach that high. But this is a historic structure in town, the Earls Court Water Tower. It's listed on the National Register of Historic Structures and the Rhode Island Register also. And it doesn't belong to anybody. It's just hanging out there. Nobody has responsibility for it. I've had my handyman there digging up flowers and all of that, but the structure needs some help. The mortar is crumbling and it does need a cap so the water doesn't keep pouring in. It has to go under somebody's auspices, and I was thinking DPW would be a good department to put it under. Is Steve still sitting down? Yep, okay. because, I mean, it just can't get, the neighbors take care of it. This is absurd at this point. Again, there has to be some work done on it. There really does. Otherwise, the thing is just going to crumble. And, you know, we do what we can, the neighbors, and Steve does what he does with cutting the grass and all of that, but it really needs to go under some department. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as is, or does anyone want to remove any items for discussion?
So moved.
I can't tell if I can do this before or after. There were two agenda items I'd like to pull.
Okay, which one would you like to pull?
Number 1 and number 11.
Okay, so motion to approve consent agenda. We're going to remove D1 and D11.
D was the second one, D11?
Yes.
1 and 11. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda excluding those two?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Counselor Lawler, second by Counselor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. So we'll remove. So the first motion that we're going to discuss separately is a motion to approve the purchase of firearms for the police department from Peros Gun Shop and Police Supply in the amount of $2,886.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
So
Counselor Kopech?
I have a question about this one, because if I remember correctly, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, the last time we purchased firearms was from this organization as well, and there was some concern over the issue of the fact that they resell firearms. And, you know, I think we talked about this last year, and the concern was that a firearm that had been that had been owned by the town of Narragansett could somehow be inappropriately utilized in the future. And the amount of, there's one of the reasons we do it is because we get a discount. The discount is $288, which I'm not sure is worth the potential for having a firearm used inappropriately. That was originally a Narragansett, under Narragansett ownership. So I just wanted to verify that that was the same place, and if it is there a specific reason why we went back there?
I believe it is the same.
Attorney.
It's a standard practice in police departments that when the weapons are traded and they get a credit on them, the transfer of the weapons clearly identifies that the weapons are no longer affiliated with the town of Narragansett, and they go to a federal firearms dealer, and then from there they can sell them again if they choose.
Well, I understand that it's legal. I just have some question about it being ethical. That's my issue. So, I think it's an inappropriate thing to do, and it's not because I don't want to have our first responders to have whatever they need in the work that they do, but I think that this is inappropriate. So, just wanted to make that point.
I mean, it did come up the last term, I remember, but I don't remember what the remedy was. I thought we were going to...
I thought we were going to look for someplace...
Something else, that's what I kind of thought, too.
Or just destroy the firearms was another thought, too. Because, I mean, the discount it's not going to break this bank.
Jim, you're saying this is standard practice in policing?
So what?
It is. I mean, if I recall, last time it was discussed, there was no direction from the council to specifically...
Not to specifically not do it, but to consider a different source, regardless of whether it was more expensive. I believe that was, I don't know, unfortunately I didn't have time to go look up the YouTube video of this, so I don't know exactly what the words were, but I just know that it was out there.
Yeah, sorry. I think Chief Corrigan, can we ask Chief Corrigan to come? I thought you were waving your hand to be able to speak, so I'm going to...
This transaction here is to expand our inventory and provide 2 guns for new officers. We're not trading any firearms on this time around. This is not part of that program.
So this is just a discount?
Yeah, we're just buying.
You just buy, okay. Well,
We had 2 new positions that we're buying guns for, and then
Yeah,
we
that's-
we need some firearms for inventory. We're not giving them any new guns.
I
Any
had,
old guns.
I have absolutely no objection to buying the guns. My objection was if we were trading in, so.
We're not trading in this time.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other
Members
questions?
members of the council, we can, going forward, we can look into other options.
Okay, yeah. Is
There
that,
is
I've got no problem with this, if this is
there is no
standard
trade on
practice.
this.
But when we're selling, right, Deb, that was the,
Yeah.
that was the difference,
Yeah, that's- this is- I
Not
have-
receiving, but selling.
I don't have a problem with standard practice. What I have a problem with is the potential use of
Which is standard
firearms.
practice, right, Jim?
Well,
I
This-
understand
this is
your
a case-
perspective, but
This particular case that you said is not a trade-in.
I got
It's
it.
not a selling, it's a.
Right.
it's a- The other
Purchase.
ones were
Yeah.
trade-ins.
Okay,
These are
that's fine.
purchases. But yes, we can look into other options.
all right, thank you. Thank you.
okay, fine. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Was that it? Did you say yes? Oh, I didn't see, I did not see you, sorry.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I objected to the, it was essentially selling the guns to this Paris gun shop. It was really an end run around the voter initiative. We called it a trade-in, but essentially we're selling it. We gave them to them, we got a credit, and then we bought more guns. I totally oppose these semi-automatic pistols being sold to gun shops where they are sold to the general public. This particular gun is the gangbanger's gun of choice, and if you don't believe me, please look up Tyrone Robinson and you tell me what gun he shot the Providence police officer with. It was one of these guns. There's absolutely no need for us to trade in guns. What would we talk about, 20 grand or something? It's just not worth the risk. And that's the practice that isn't standard practice. It's standard practice to buy guns, and I guess we buy them from the cheapest place. But it's not standard practice what we did there, and then the end run around the voter initiative also. Thank you.
To be clear, there is no trade-ins with this. This is a purchase of firearms. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you, okay.
It's good to know.
Sure, Dr. Alba?
Thank you, Dr. Al Albert, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. I'm not going to second guess as a police chief. You know, I don't got, he's the expert. So I'm sure he's not going to put anyone in harm's way. So out of all due respect, Ms. Celebrato and Councilwoman Kopech, I think we should let him run his department. Thank you.
Okay, so we already voted on that. Going, the next agenda item that was pulled was the motion to approve the request from the Rhode Island State Police for their annual 5K foot pursuit road race to be held on Sunday, April 28th, 2024, from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., subject to approval of state and local regulations. Councilor Kopech, you pulled this one. Would you like to speak on it?
Just, I didn't see any detail. It was like on the agenda, it came out as, there was nothing I could read, so that was the only reason that I had. I really don't have a concern with this, I just couldn't read the actual motion.
So they do. So there is motion on here. It says, so the cover page has information with it. So it's the 5K foot pursuit road race has been established by the Rhode Island State Police as a fundraiser for the Rhode Island State Police Charitable Fund, which has annually provided funding sources for countless individuals, groups, and organizations locally as well as statewide. This race is scheduled to start and end at Narragansett Town Beach, in particular the north parking lot. This event draws upwards of 800 participants and 200 spectators. The Parks and Rec Department, Police Department, Fire Department, and Public Works Department have all reviewed and approved this race and course. Local places of worship that may be affected by this race will be notified well in advance so that parishioners are made aware. There will not be any road closures during this event. A certificate of liability insurance naming the town of Narragansett as additionally insured will be provided prior to the race. And then there's some attachments.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah,
okay.
it was just.
Yeah, it was.
you
I
can
know
see
it was
it's
black.
grayed out.
I was
can
able
see
to click on it, but it is
It did,
black
okay.
on
It
this
was-
too, so it's not
fine.
like the blue.
It's fine, it's
okay.
fine. I just couldn't read
Okay.
it.
All in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion by, actually, did we open it up? I don't know if we took a vote. Did we, I don't remember if we opened it. Okay. Okay, motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Okay, so moving on to new business, there is a request to remove from the Parks and Rec Department G.1, which is a motion to approve the Civil War, oh, sorry about that. No, I'm just removing the item. To remove the Civil War Soldier Experience Program at the South County Museum on Saturday, August 19th and Sunday, August 2023 at 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. daily, subject to state and local regulations. So that was asked to be taken off, so we're not going to be discussing that. For new business items, so we do, we're not required to take public comment, but we always do. In the event that I haven't taken public comment in the past, it's because I'm human and sometimes I do make mistakes. So it's not to preclude anyone from speaking. We do want to hear from the public. Just as an explanation, the items that we do not take public comment on are second readings and also scheduling. But for any agenda items, I do my best to look out and try to see everyone. Sometimes I don't, so I do have extra sets of eyes here that help me. So the next item that we'll be discussing is from the Finance Department. It's a motion to approve the appointment of the tax collector for the town of Narragansett.
So move the motion. Second.
Wait, who, sorry?
Second.
Who was the first?
Jill.
Okay.
I beat her by half a second.
Okay. All right. And this is for, this is the appointment of, sorry.
Tax
collector.
So the tax collector and this is appointing Stacy Gorman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Cecily Bonanno. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, next from the park, anyone from the, sorry, I forgot to ask the public if anyone wants to speak on that. Next, we have a motion to approve the purchase and installation of one new playground structure and benches for Petaskwampsett Top Park from M.E. O'Brien and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $48,518.80.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Anyone from the council wishing to discuss this? Anyone from the public? Ms. Ciliberto.
Start sending more emails. Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I have a question about these two structures. One is noticeably smaller than the other, and yet the prices are the same. And we ordered something for Thompson Park 4 months ago. We still don't have it, and now there's a proposal to order even more. And like I said, it's the same price, but the structure that's going to be ordered for Petaskwampsett is so much larger than the one for Thompson. Doesn't make any sense to me. I would prefer that maybe switched or maybe cancel the Thompson one and get a bigger one for the same price for Thompson. It's just, kind of
Thank you.
confusing.
Yeah, so just another point of order. So when the members of the public are coming to speak on an agenda item, please stay germane to the motion, meaning if it's a motion to approve, that you support or oppose, and that's the discussion we should be having on those. So anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Dr. Alba?
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, yes. I support this motion, and I'm all for investments for programs for recreation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from Community Development Department, we have a motion to read, pass, and adopt as a second reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions of Section 2.2 definitions and a new section 7.21, student-occupied dwellings.
So moved.
Second?
So,
Are you taking no comments at all?
No, it's a second reading. We don't take comments on second reading.
On past councils we have, so I just wanted to.
No, not this council, and I don't think last council we hadn't either. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Motion by
Sorry, I
Councilor
couldn't make the
Lawler.
comments.
Seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 4-1.
I had a big, long speech.
Next is a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance in the amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled An Ordinance in Relation to Zoning, specifically Sections 2.2, Definitions, 6.3, Prohibited Uses, and 7.22, Retail Sales of Marijuana.
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Anyone? Any?
Call that vote again so it's clear, please.
Okay. It's a first reading. Does anybody want it? We just went over it. So we just went over. Yeah, so we had a public hearing. So in this situation, what we've had in the past is when we've had a public hearing on the same issue, we've already discussed everything at length. So in the same meeting, there shouldn't really have any comments to be made unless something's changed, which it hasn't. So we actually had the public hearing and it's the same. So,
Actually,
Something did change.
well, it's just, I guess I didn't say anything because I knew what it was, but I sort of wanted to make the point that I thought that the original proposal was the better of the two proposals. So I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, so we'll vote on this. And
Yeah?
so they're going to vote.
so we'll vote to pass it, or you can say yes or no to pass it.
You're right, I'm going to
Yeah.
say no because.
Okay.
So am I.
Because
Okay.
I want to do the
Sure.
BB, so.
Okay.
So call the
Okay,
vote.
so as is, so again, it's a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled An Ordinance in Relation to Zoning, specifically Sections 2.2 Definitions, 6.3 Prohibited Uses, and 7.22 Retail Sales of Marijuana as it is in our packet. It was motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Ferranti. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so motion passes 3-2. Next, from the Public Works Department, we have a motion to approve a contract amendment for final design and bidding services for the Town Hall Front Entrance Improvements Project with Robinson Green Beretta, RGB, in the amount of $26,450.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion from the council?
I have a question. Jim, this is, there's a lot of parts to this particular project, and I was just curious if we have a sense of what the total cost of this project was going to be, even though we know that some of the money's from the ARPA money.
The funding for this is from the ARPA money.
Right.
We do not have a final number on what is proposed will cost.
Do we have more parts to this coming besides this one still? Or is this the last thing that's going to be done for the?
This may be the last of the design.
Right, because it's just the design.
Right, then what we'd have to do at that point, then we would have to go out for RFP for the vendors.
And will this be the last one of those, once we do that? I mean, is there more work that's going to be done in the
This is
in the
pretty
building?
much a good chunk of it. It was
Okay.
defined, some of it is already allotted in the ARPA funding, but
Right.
we do know that it will probably exceed that. But we'd like to see if this would be the quickest way to get this design completed quickly, and so that we can put it out to bid to get the building ADA accessible. We'll prioritize it as we see the final project.
So I agree that all these things are very important. I was actually thinking about this in relation to the library because, we had to have a complete plan for the library. Of course, there were some adjustments over time as you do the actual build, but this project has been done in pieces, right? And so I don't have a good sense in my head as to how much money we're going to spend on it. And I would think, it's kind of a big capital project, really, if you think about it, in much the same way that the library was. And so is it possible, and maybe I need to put a motion on, but in the future, to get a sense of what we expect the entire cost to be? I think if it's going to be a multi-million-dollar thing, we probably should have done it from the get-go, but.
Well, we will have a better number. I mean, this was stopped back in 2018, I believe. It stopped.
Right.
And then there was no funding available. And then,
kind of like the library.
COVID hit, and then the ARPA money came. And this will finish up the design. Once we get the full design, then we can put an RFP out for bids. We'll get actual costs updated. We did have some others that were already funded through ARPA, but we know that won't be enough to cover it.
So at the point where you get the RFP completed and get a response, can we get a full sense of what the entire cost of all of this was just so that we have some idea of what we've spent?
Absolutely. And at that junction, we'd have to prioritize it to see what could be afforded.
And we have to get the money for it too.
That's
so,
correct.
Right,
And we may not be able to finish it.
Yeah.
But we'll prioritize it as it comes in.
Okay, it was just in my mind that we had, so many parts to this, and I just had no idea what we were spending, in truth. So, but we don't
But
really
yes,
know.
we would have those numbers,
Okay.
make them available to council during the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tierney. Anyone else from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next up, from the Public Works Department, is a motion to approve the purchase of one new Brush Bandit wood chipper for Public Works from Bobcat of Rhode Island in the amount of $59,034.70 pursuant to the State of Rhode Island Master Price Agreement.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next up is a motion to approve the purchase of one new 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 regular cab 4x4 pickup truck, including snowplow and liftgate for Public Works from Colonial Municipal Group in the amount of $69,636.45, utilizing the Greater Boston Police Council contract.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next up is a motion to approve the contract with Precision Concrete Cutting Incorporated for sidewalk trip hazard removal on Caswell Street, Mathewson Street, which are town roads, Ocean Road, and Beach Street, state roads, in the amount of $14,321.79.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council?
I hate to do this again, but one more thing. Actually, a couple more, but not only one for this. I live, as you all know, on Point Judith Road, and there are a lot of sidewalk issues there too, and I was wondering if anybody's planning to do anything about those. There's a ton of really broken sidewalk spaces going all the way from the escape road up to the Stop and Shop. It's really, it's a hazard. There's several hazards. I know, because I fall on those hazards, so.
We can certainly assess it with DPW and ride that and see.
I would truly appreciate that, and so would, the 9 million other people who walk up and down that street.
And
So
we'll get
thank you.
back to you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next up from the Police Department is a motion to approve the purchase of 3 new 2023 Ford Police Utility all-wheel drive vehicles from the McGovern Municipal Headquarters in the amount of $129,596.05, utilizing the Greater Boston Police Council contract.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council?
Yes. Sure. but I have to, hold on a second. Just a couple of questions. In the detail of this, it mentions that, let me see here, that there's going to be, that the three vehicles are, two of them are one kind and one is another, that refers to the doors painted white. So what, the two that don't have doors painted white, what are they going to be? Which I hate. Is there some special reason why we're getting the ones with the ghost lettering? Well, you and I have had this conversation before. I do not like the ghost lettering because I think you can't tell that it's a police vehicle, and I think that that's, difficult for folks who might be looking for some kind of help. So that's one thing. The other question that I have is what is a detail car? Is there any way that we can change that, by the way, to make them all? I mean,
It's another $1,000 per car, but I could spend only $2,000 and make them black and white.
What?
If that's what the council wishes.
I just think the black and white cars are more noticeable, more understandable from people who might have a need for support from the police. I think the other ones are.
Yeah,
I think the other ones are intimidating, to be honest with you.
I do get a lot of positive feedback on the dark cars as well.
Could you tell us the rationale for the black cars? Like
They're more tactical. There's times where you don't want to be announcing that you're a police officer pulling into a neighborhood.
So that's why you split some white.
That's why we split it up, yeah.
Wow. Okay. I disagree, but I don't think I'm going to win that one. What is a detail car?
Detail cars, those are the high mileage cars that are no longer being used by the officers every day, but we keep them so when they're working details, companies will hire us. They pay for the police officer, and then they pay $25 an hour for the use of the car. In fact, I got the figure from my detail officer. Last fiscal year, the town took in a little over $60,000 on those detail fees.
So does that cover the cost of the use of the higher mileage cars for whatever, for repairs, et cetera?
It goes to the general fund, but it goes to offset the cost of keeping our fleet.
You don't keep track of that, though, right?
What's that?
In other words, well, it doesn't matter that much, but I was just thinking in terms of if we're going to use the older cars, I mean, it's a good thing that we get some revenue from them. I just was hoping that the revenue actually fully offsets whatever cost that car incurs in terms of repairs, et cetera.
Oh, certainly, yeah. These are cars that you would never have a police officer driving the calls on. They're beat up, but they're fine to park with the lights on.
Okay, I have one more question. I don't want you to think I'm picking on you because I really and truly am not. But these are things that are important to me. And the other one is, we did talk last year when we bought our 3 cars about the possibility of going towards hybrids or electric cars. And, I think if I remember correctly, your point was that there was a long wait for many of them and it was hard to find them, but we talked about the possibility of, kind of getting started on that, since we know that there's capital funding for police cars all
My
the time.
objection is I don't see the electric cars performing to a level that the traditional cars do for a frontline car. When I come before the town for like an administrative vehicle or for a detective car, I'm absolutely open to buying electric. But these cars are very rugged. We use them in the wintertime, and they really take a beating. And we don't want to have a car, broken down or on the side of the road because during an emergency.
I've been driving a hybrid since 2006, and I've never had one break down. But the point but I'm not a police officer. I did do a little research, and what I'm finding, especially in relation to electric cars, is that there are a lot of police forces now that find them actually working better than other vehicles that are used by police forces that are not particularly electric, and not so much the hybrids, but the electrics.
I haven't gotten that from my fleet manager or from speaking to the people at Highway, so that's kind of who I'm leaning on. I've had salespeople tell me that, because they are more expensive.
Well, they're more expensive, but they also require no gasoline, and consequently their engines are simpler. And
we're not really set up with the infrastructure for them right now either. I mean, you got to charge them.
It's something for the future.
That's the
Yeah.
next thing we need to talk about.
Yeah, so my recommendation would be is you start with the administrative vehicles that need to be, as they becoming replaced, start with your detective cars, and then it's going to advance, the technology's going to advance, and eventually you'll feel comfortable doing with your fleet cars, but at this point, it's premature.
So your next administrative car will be an electric?
My next request will be for detective cars.
No, I mean, the next time that you're going to purchase an administrative car, it'll be an electric?
When I do our budget hearings, I'll bring you those prices, and
Okay.
then the council can tell me.
All right, then. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council?
Still don't like the ghost ones.
Ms. Alberto, I saw your hand up first earlier.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. This is another $200,000, okay? Last year, I took a picture of all the cars in the lot. There were 26 cars, and after that, they bought another 5, I think, cars, and now there's another 3 cars, and the chief explained that some of them were kind of broken down, except that when it came time to sell them, the list that was going out to the voters of the surplus property to be approved, there was only 1 police car on it, a 1997 car. So they all seem to be okay. So it's just so much money we keep spending. We have a small police force, and to me, it seems like we're almost at the level where it's 1 car per police officer. Is that the goal here? And then what happens then? No place to park them, they take them home. There's 3 shifts. You don't need 35 good cars. You need, a core of good cars. It's another $200,000. That's all I can say. It seems like a lot of money. Thanks. But no, I'm against.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, so you oppose. Dr. Alba.
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. Like I said, with the police chief's previous request, it looks like he's a frugal guy. I don't think he's going to be spending money recklessly. In fact, by him not going with the hybrid vehicles, I can see that. Eventually, over time, due to economies of scale, once more and more of these hybrid vehicles come out, then they might be worth looking into. But as of now, even though I'm a frugal individual, I wouldn't buy a hybrid because I know how much time I drive on the car, how much miles, and how many miles I would even have to put into that car before I even break even. So, in many ways, and also if it's for the police department, if those batteries end up dying or they end up getting damaged, the cost is quite much more expensive. It's very expensive to replace those batteries. And sometimes those batteries do die. And so I understand your concern about our environment, Council Kopech, but we also got to look at the bottom line in regards to cost. So I think the police chief's doing a wonderful job. He does his due diligence, I can see that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the Police Department, we have a motion to approve the purchase and installation services of 3 MDT tablets for 3 new police vehicles from Island Tech Services LLC in the amount of $18,710. So a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, sorry. Any discussion from the council? No. Anyone from the public? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next is a motion to approve the purchase and installation of equipment for 3 new police vehicles from Global Public Safety in the amount of $55,500.
So moved.
Second.
Any comment, any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a motion to approve the payment of $24,000 to the Providence Center for the services of a police community diversion clinician for fiscal year 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? And from the public? Ms. Celeberto.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Rose Court. I approve of this. I'm just wondering if it's enough. We're sharing one person with what? South Kingston, North Kingston, Richmond, and from other. North Kingston has a lot of people. South Kingston has 31,000. We have 14,500. I want to know how one person is possibly servicing all these towns. I had a friend, he used to be on call, South County Hospital, ER. Somebody with a mental health issue would go in and they would call him. He was there day and night. I just don't know how this one person is working. And what happens if there's a conflict? Does somebody from the Providence Center, somebody else step in? I just have some questions about that. What happens?
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the town manager, we have a motion to approve a memorandum of agreement to amend Section 11E of the collective bargaining agreement between the town and Local 303, International Brotherhood of Police Officers, specifically increasing the interstate navigation Block Island Ferry special detail rate from $40 for fiscal year 23-24 to take effect immediately upon passage of the town council.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council?
I just have one question. Does the increased fee that we're getting from the ferry cover the new rate?
It does. We had for the first 6 months, we had the original landing fee of 35 cents.
Yeah.
And it was negotiated 50 cents for the last 6 months because they pay us by the calendar year as opposed to the fiscal year. And I sat down with Christine Spagnoli, Christine Wilson, our finance director, and we definitely, the fund can definitely handle the $5 increase for the $1,600. And we did it for one fiscal year only, and we'll have a better number next year for the full year of data. And it's been 10 years since the rate has been increased, and 21 years since the landing fee was increased.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the council? Ms. Celeberto.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Rose Court. I don't think $40 is enough. I asked my husband, he was on the fire department, I said, back in the 80s, you used to go to the Civic Center, they had details at how much you get, it's like $15 an hour. So I did one of those inflation calculator things, and it came out to $58.83 they should be getting an hour, not $40. So I'm just concerned about that.
I don't
Yes,
normally
Mr.
comment on the public's comment. The reason, I do agree that it should be a higher rate to match other communities. However, during the negotiations and when the contract started in 2022, the police union had requested an increase in it. However, the special detail rate for the Block Island Ferry is fully funded by the Block Island landing fee. And the landing fee, it took legislative action to get it increased by only 15 cents to match that of Block Island. So there's no cost to the taxpayer. It comes direct, well, to people who ride the ferry, it does people who land in town. But I agree, it should be higher, but right now, the $5 increase can be supported by the galley landing fee, and it will be revisited next year when we get a full year and a half of data at the increased rate. And in discussions with Block Island, and going forward, we will probably at some juncture, both New Shoreham and Narragansett, when the time comes, proceed forward with the request of the legislature to increase them simultaneously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to comment? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the town manager's office, we have a motion to approve the job description for the town manager, executive assistant, / human resources manager.
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
Any discussion from the council?
This must be Deb Kopech night. Yes.
Okay.
Having been a human resources director for a municipal entity. One of the concerns I have absolute faith in Ms. Russo to do a great job. My concern is that the position of an HR manager or director is very difficult from the standpoint that I always said that I had one foot on each side of an organization, the administrative side and the employee side. And there are times when some of the things that you have to do as a human resources director are, there are issues that have to be dealt with that are not really conducive to discussing with other people, even your boss. And so I have some concern over combining these two positions into one entity, and I don't know how you would plan to separate the two parts of this, or if you've thought about that at all, but it's of concern to me from the standpoint of the potential for employees to feel that they can't, they wouldn't be able to provide, to get the kind of service from the human resources person in a confidential manner. And I know that there would be no intention to not do that, but the fact is it has a slightly chilling effect for an employee to have to know that that was the case. So it's of concern to me. That's all I'm going to say. And it's based on my own experience as much as any other thing. So I wanted to just make sure I raised that point.
In prior years, prior to the position being split, and again, there have been many changes in human resources over the years. It was a combined position. And when I came here, Ms. Fairhurst, Ms. Healy, Ms. Fairhurst was the HR manager and performed her functions, her job duties, and I only intervened when it was absolutely necessary or when it was appropriate.
Right.
I am fully aware of every grievance that's usually ever filed, and if there's any type of corruption or harassment, I need to be informed immediately anyway. That's the buck stops
Well,
here.
see, the problem is that that's not entirely necessarily so. And so, and I don't, this is not personal in any way, but there can be instances, and I even was involved in one, where, my superior was a school superintendent, and I was not able to deal with him because of the specific issue that was involved. So I just think that there has to be, you have to somehow come up with a wall between the two positions in order to ensure that that the employees get the proper support that they need, and also that the administration gets the proper support that they need. It's a really weird, hard thing to maneuver. And so I just, again, this has not, it's not personal as far as I'm concerned. For you, it's not personal. It's absolutely not personal for Patty. I think she does a great job. I think she's done a really good job in her HR role, since she's been doing this recently. That's not my problem. My problem is, that there's a real fine line that you have to be careful about, and I want to make sure that you think about that, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
When the decision came, and through the process, we used, it's really for the next agenda item, but the current HR manager had served as acting in 13-19.
Right, I read
again,
everything, yep.
The decision to present it, to combine them, to bring to the council, was, and the person selected for it will be evaluated at 6 months, and then 9 months and 12 months. If is burdensome and it's not working, my plan would be to separate the positions again. But I have full faith and confidence that won't be necessary. And in any type of a conflict, I will advise the HR director to seek the opinion of the solicitor, and I would advise the council that, I'd notify the council president to say, there's an HR matter that perhaps involves me or something. I've given the HR manager the direction to go speak to the solicitor directly.
So I would recommend that just becomes standard practice, that, it doesn't even engage, the HR position doesn't engage in that. If there was something, the likelihood of it happening is pretty slim, but if it did, I would say that the HR person has the right and obligation to go directly to the solicitor, period. In other words, it can't be your decision if you're involved in it. And so
No, if I'm involved, no, it shouldn't be.
so I would just maybe we need to say something in the job description that says, under certain circumstances, the HR director will report to the solicitor.
Jim, a question for you. I know that you brought together a search committee with HR professionals from around the state for this.
Not really.
Did this issue come up at all?
No.
Okay.
It should have.
I will say that as far as like grievances and issues that town employees have, I usually hear about it right from them, personally.
And that's fine, but that may not
I
happen.
refer them to HR.
I understand that, but I think that so if you're referring to HR, it's a weird cycle, and you have to really be aware of how to deal with it. And I think the answer there, like I said, is that the position should have sort of a dotted line to the solicitor, because I think that's the only person who could actually. It couldn't be the town council, so it would have to be the solicitor, a dotted line, and it would be that person's determination as to whether, which way they should go. And you'd have to have a lot of, you'd have to have a lot of belief in that individual's ability to make the right decisions in those circumstances. And that's one of the good reasons not to have those two jobs combined. But if you're going to, I think you have to make sure there's the possibility of a wall.
I think I would have to ask the solicitors, but traditionally, department heads don't have a direct line.
I
to the
know.
solicitor.
This is a really different position than most of your department head positions.
Yeah, I just want to add, if I could. I agree a little bit with Deb being an elementary school principal. When the union had issues, they brought in HR. I didn't want to be involved in those issues. So I say, I'll support it, but I do not, and I'm clear about saying this publicly, I don't think those are a good combination. They were split in, 2012 for a reason. And I think it's great to consolidate and try to put it together, but I wonder if the administrative assistant to the manager and then HR confidential stuff is not the best combination. I am a little reluctant because, you have union issues and there's just all kinds of confidentiality, and it makes it difficult. I love Patty. I know we're not supposed to, that's the next motion. It has nothing to do with her, but we're all going to not be here forever. So the question is that a good combination to put those two departments together, whether you're here, we're here, you're not? I'm cautious about it too, because in my 35 years, I've dealt with a lot of union support and stuff, and it makes it, like, how many employees are there in the town?
Yeah, that's a good question.
About 195 plus the
That's a lot.
seasonal.
And some of them probably come right to you and tell you their grievances, but there's probably some that wouldn't, right? So it just becomes that slippery slope. And I know from HR directors, and I know we're speaking from a school perspective, but it's municipal as well. You just have to, it's a very uncomfortable combination for me too.
I will tell you, in the 4 years that I've been here, I've resolved more matters with employees by them coming directly to me. And the HR has they have an excellent role, they do a great job, and in this instance, I think that this is perfectly doable, and it's a significant savings to the town, and with frequent evaluations over the period while we're trying it, we'll shake it out.
I will just say that one really big lawsuit could kill your savings in an instant. And so you have to be, these are the things that we all have to consider nowadays. And, I just wanted to point it out because I think it's really important to contemplate what you can't live by the worst case scenario, but you do have to be prepared for it.
I understand.
Yeah.
And prior to working here, I had 740 employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I dealt with HR frequently. I dealt with the staff individually frequently.
But we're not talking about you. We're talking about this position, and so fine, you want to try it out, more power to you, but I want you, I think it's really important to consider the possibilities of things that might be difficult.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your support on this one.
I'm always supportive.
What did you say?
I said I'm always supportive.
All right, anyone else from the council wishing to comment on this agenda item? Ms. Celeberto?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. You want somebody who's your executive assistant to, I just think that many employees would never even come to her because she's your executive assistant and because she's so close to you. I think this is a built-in conflict situation. Are these union positions or not?
Some are.
So in other words, you eliminated a union position, no?
Neither one are union positions.
Okay, that's what I wanted, that's fine. But I just don't understand the combination. I don't think it's a good idea. Like I said, I think it's an inherent conflict. I don't think people are gonna come to a human resource person who's, the town manager's right-hand man. It's just not gonna happen. And I think it's gonna put a damper on people, maybe having legitimate grievances. And I just don't think it's not a good combination. Combine it with something else, you know what I mean? Pick another position. This doesn't seem to be the good combination. Thanks.
I would like to note that both positions as non-union report directly to me as it is. And
Right.
there are times that I do go down to HR and go, someone just came to me on this, what's going on? Which is perfectly acceptable.
But the HR person didn't work outside your office. It's,
I meet with the staff, most of them, daily,
okay.
the SMT.
Well, just
Yeah,
try and remember what I
No,
said.
I understand. Yeah, I
Thank
certainly
you.
do, and it's a good point.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think I'm okay with this position being combined. I know there's going to be an evaluation in 6 months, and if it doesn't work, and I'm sure it'll come back to us, but for the time being, I support it. Anyone else wishing to comment?
I think the monitoring will gives the council a chance to see how this is working out.
I also have faith in the person that is being considered for appointment this evening, that if it is too much, I feel confident that, one, I would be able to see it, and two, that she's a professional, and I think she'd come right to tell me that.
This has nothing to do with the individual. It has to
No.
do with the position.
But the process, as far as if it is approved, that if it doesn't work, regroup, I'm fine.
Anyone, Councilor Ferrandi, were you all set? All right, Dr. Alba.
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. Yeah, I've been working for the state. It'll be 34 years this year. Plan on working for many, many more years because I really love my job, thank God. And we've had issues over those 34 years. I think you have it right. Let him, he's been here, he's worked here, he knows his troops. I wouldn't want to tell the police chief how to run his business, and I wouldn't want to tell our town manager to run his team. I think he has a good feel on what's going on here. And I also feel that the operation of a school, or even a social work program, our kids different. Each system, be the town of Narragansett, town council, should be the town manager's team. They all have their unique situations. So you really cannot equate middle school, junior high school, college with the operation of the team that our town manager is supervising and works on. I think he has a good feel of it, and so I agree with him on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next is a motion to approve the appointment of Patricia Russa as the town manager, executive assistant / human resources manager.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the town clerk's office, we have a motion to approve a victualler license and holiday license for the Salty General LLC, doing business as the Salty General, located at 1004 Boston Neck Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, subject to local and state regulations.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next, from the town clerk's office, is a motion to schedule a work session to interview applicants to the Zoning and Plating Board of Review with the scheduled date of September 5th.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next is a motion to reappoint Nicholas Edwards to the Affordable Housing Trust Collaborative Committee for a 3-year term to expire July 2nd, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
He's a great candidate to be reappointed.
Anyone else from the council? Anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Cicilline Bonanno. Motion passes 5-0. Next is a motion to reappoint Rodman Black as a member to the Harbor Management Commission for a 3-year term to expire on June 30th, 2026, and Harvey Cataldo and Stephen Marasco as alternates to a 1-year term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
I'll move the motion.
Somebody has to second.
Go ahead, Jen.
Second?
So, any discussion?
Another great slate of candidates.
Anyone from the public? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Cicilline Bonanno, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. Next up from the Town Council is a motion to schedule a Narragansett Town Beach Workshop.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. And this one is coming from Councilor Cicilline Bonanno. Do you want to introduce this?
It's just been standard practice at the end of a season to meet with Park and Rec and see how the season has gone and what are some of the things that went well and what are the finances and et cetera. So we've been doing it for, I think, 14 years straight with the workshop, and it's an opportunity. It's an off town council meeting because it does take quite a bit of time to go through with their staff, so, but it's pretty standard.
Yeah, thank you. So the recommendation was for October 10th. I don't know if, I know that there's studies going on, and then there's also a survey, beach survey, so I don't know if that's going to be back in time, so I don't know if, did you check with Ms. Croshaw?
Yeah, I did check, did have a conversation with Michelle as far as the state. I'm traveling out of the country too in September, and I know last term we tried to do September. It got so late we moved into November. It was a nightmare. I don't think the beach capacity information is going to be done. This is the day-to-day operation. What's the overall income that the beach had? How did the beach operate? What were the problems? All the events that they had. So it's more about at the end of the beach season wrap-up. As far as the extended study, I think that's going to be a whole nother opportunity to sit with Park and Rec and get that information. But this is just basic day-to-day operations.
So I would like to make a recommendation that we move it to November 13. I did have a chance today to speak with the Rec Board Chair, Tom Warren, and he is on the committee for the Carrying Capacity Committee, along with the director of the department. And we are currently in the process of having a questionnaire conducted. We're not doing the typical yearly beach survey this year, so it's all going to be done for the Carrying Capacity Study. So they feel more comfortable pushing it back a little bit more. That would give the company, Taylor Engineering, more time to be able to conduct these surveys and get information. We probably won't, as Susan pointed out, we probably won't have the entire report. They said maybe up to 10 months, but we can push them along a bit, and they would like to ask for additional time. The director is comfortable with that time frame of being able to do all of what she needs to do for the
That's absolutely
written
fine.
part.
That's absolutely fine.
Any other comments?
I just want to make sure that one of the things that was going to come up in this meeting was going to be how we were going to structure fees based on the fact that, what we needed for the fund. And so I just want to make sure that work with.
With the enterprise fund. Yep, and that
yeah.
was another reason why pushing it back, because Chris is working on all the
Okay.
enterprise funds right now.
Good. That's good.
So one of the other suggestions I would like to make is maybe having it prior to one of our regular scheduled meetings, which is November 6th or November 20th. I know we could do a 5:30 to 6:30. We can have the work session and then, or the workshop, and then have our meeting following, because I do have, we don't have anything scheduled prior to those meetings. So I like to kind of have, meetings before then if possible, instead of scheduling an extra meeting. Does anybody have an objection to the 11/6 or 11/20?
Just look at,
So you just want to do that an hour earlier? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, so because we usually give it an hour, so if we could do 5:30 to 6:30, and then we could quickly set up for the town council meeting.
So what's the selected
What's the date?
So it'd be a regularly scheduled meeting, so it would be our Monday, so the first, it's either the first, so it's the
November
6th, 11/6, or 11/20.
can we just do the 20? That'll give them even more time.
Sure. Does anyone have any issues? It's our regular meeting, so we should all be here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was all in favor of that date?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And that was motion by, lost track of that, Councilor Siciliano, Council Lawler, second by Councilor Kopak. Motion.
No, I thought I seconded it.
Okay, seconded by Councilor. All right.
Jill and I have been going back and forth.
Okay, let me redo that. Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Cicilline Bonanno. A motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Next is a motion to direct.
Excuse me, Council President.
Yes.
What time was that scheduled
5:30.
for?
So I'm sorry, it's going to be scheduled November 20th at 5:30
At
PM.
5:30,
Yes,
thank you.
sorry about that. Okay, so next is a motion to direct the town manager and staff to pursue 2 applications with Rhode Island Housing under the Municipal Technical Assistance Program.
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to say Susan. Okay.
So this again is, this comes from the Affordable Housing Trust Collaborative. It's pretty standard. It's to pursue 2 applications for Rhode Island Housing under the assistance program. The grants are available from Rhode Island Housing and will provide support for the future. Narragansett, understanding the infrastructure, the capacities of water and sewer, and critical to the future expansions of the needs of housing in the town of Narragansett. So, I mean, it's a pre-application. It's attached. It's $100,000. It's an opportunity to go after some money, and so this again comes from the affordable housing. I think it's important that we know, the water and sewer capacity, and clearly understand that for our future of the town for a lot of different reasons. So I hope you'll support the grant findings.
Any comments from the council? Discussion? Anyone from the public? Ms. Celebrato?
Catherine Celebrato, 40 Eagles Car. Are we applying for a grant? Is that what we're going to do? We're not going to appropriate $100,000.
Yeah, we're going to apply,
All right.
but, yeah.
Any
apply.
grants we can get is good. We should really get a grant writer,
There's gonna be more from
This town really needs one. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I don't see anyone else. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Cicilline Bonanno. Motion passes 5-0. Next from the town council is a motion to direct the town solicitor to create an ordinance that gives property owners tax incentives for year-round rentals.
So moved.
Second.
Again, this is something that we've talked about in the Affordable Housing Trust Collaborative, ways to bring families back to Narragansett. I don't know if this is a great solution, because if I have a seasonal rental and I'm, paying this much, or you have a year-round and it's this much, but it's similar to the homestead. If a property owner rented year-round, maybe they could get an incentive. And I can't remember, Mike, I think it was like 18%. I don't know what it was, but we had talked about the homestead being 10%, so something a little bit better than that. Again, it's just another opportunity to figure out a way to bring back families. So, I don't know how it will work, but I know that Nick, the chair, has communicated with Mr. Davis about possibilities and talked to the finance director as well. And all I'm hoping is that they can bring something back to the council as a look to see if it's a good beginning, to see if we could encourage families to. You can't find a year-round rental anywhere in the town, except Al Alba has one, and he's got somebody in it. But it's really hard to find year-round rentals for families that want to come. So I don't know if, the money might not work out, but it might be a good start to say, if you do that, then you get this break.
So,
Anyone else from the council?
yes, please, thank you. I've also been working on this because I think it's a really important initiative. I've been speaking with the finance director and the building inspector and Jim and Mark, and I'm hoping to be able to do a comprehensive TAC approach. Because if you just even take a look at the total numbers, units, we have 812 yearly rentals in town, and that does include all the apartments. And then there's a breakdown of academic and summer, but it's a huge, huge thing for us to crack and take a look at. Chris is all ready to take a look at it, Chris Wilson, but she needs a little bit more time. And I know that she and Solicitor Davis have already been speaking about the approach that we need to take. Do we need to go to the State House? What do we need to do? But rather than piecemealing it, I think we're all on the same page for this. It needs to be done. I'd prefer we just wait and then have our finance director and our town solicitors help us with the total global project instead.
So there's no date to be determined, it's just to direct them, so when they're ready, they can do it.
That's just for the year round. I think we just need to direct it for the whole, but we're working on it so much now, Susan, that there's work already been done.
Anyone else from the council? Councilor Kopech, did you have any? No.
Well, the only thing that I can say is that I did do a little research on the impact of short-term rentals and seasonal rentals, what the impact that has on both, obviously, the cost of housing and also on the lack of year-round, either rentals, or we already know that we don't have any real estate inventory. So anything that we can do
It's a start.
is a start. But, putting it all together as one piece,
A good start on this piece.
however we do it, we need to get it done.
We've just been talking about it at affordable housing for a while, so if we started with this, and again, it comes from the committee after 2 years of conversation, it would be the beginning of the work. So I don't.
Well, with all due respect to the committee, we're working on the short-term rental ordinance right now, and we have a couple different
Just
things
call it
on
to a
that.
vote then.
But no, I agree. I'm glad that you're doing this work, but we're on the same page as a committee.
Council Ferrandi, did you have anything to?
Yeah, it's a big issue. It's a huge issue. There's a lot of, I think we do need more of a all-around approach than kind of pick away at one thing, and you say an incentive for an owner that's going to rent. It could be a tax consequence. It could be, there's also ways of taking some of the, no one likes to hear this, but taking some of the profitability away from going to an Airbnb or a student rental, trying to get sometimes you have to sacrifice for getting that. But you have to start somewhere. So I'd be more, this is one of the ideas to look at, but I'd be more of an encompassing thing to kind of get some more ideas out there too, the short-term rental, the taxing structure, fees on the rental registration, something that disincentivizes a little bit of making us such an investment mecca alone. Because as soon as you close one loophole or make an adjustment here, there's going to be another one popping up. So we got to be really careful how we approach it, but it needs to be encompassing.
Thank you. Yeah. So I appreciate you putting this on the agenda, Councilor Siciliano. It's an important issue. I want to see a comprehensive package. It's like when we're dealing with a lot of things piecemeal, and I think everyone's on the same page on this council. Everybody wants to see more year-round rentals. We want to see more affordable housing. But I think there's, taking a different approach and being able to package it up. And, we have a lot of issues that we have to deal with, the zoning and all that, and just addressing that at that time as well. A lot of legislation that was passed at the State House. So I think it's definitely something that is an overarching goal of this whole council. So, yeah, I'm just going to let the public speak. Yeah. Dr. Alba. Well, I just didn't. No, I just I need to wear it.
Dr. Al Albert, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. I had a rental, about a year-round rental, would say about 32 years, and I sold it in 2020. I also have as a result, I think, people find it difficult in the town of Narragansett to find a rental, so I created the South County rentals page. And lo and behold, I get to see a lot of rentals. I get to see a lot of year-round rentals. And when you see people posting year-round rentals, it might not necessarily be Narragansett, it might be Charleston, it might be North Kingstown, but they're not cheap. They're not cheap. So therefore, people know it's supply and demand. So I know it sounds good on paper, like these people who are renting out year-round are making a financial sacrifice. A lot of them know that they're in demand. So they increase the monthly rent, and the average family of four, hardworking, can't afford to spend the $4,000, $4,500 per month, which many of these rentals are getting. So I want you to all consider that. I want you to all consider that. So it sounds great on paper, but these people aren't hurting who own property. Properties have appreciated greatly over the years. So you really want to consider, it sounds great on paper, but you really, you might want to increase the taxes on the Airbnbs. Hit them where it hurts. They're making $500 a night. So let's increase that. That's a consideration. But to give these people who are getting $4,500, and also when you have a yearly rental, you don't have to deal with the people moving in, moving out, the risk of your house getting damaged, the beer bottles or the people complaining on the neighborhood. You have overall a lot less headaches. So I just want you all to consider that before our town solicitor or whoever it might be, thinks about giving these people too much of a tax break, I would say no, let's not. Let's increase the fees on the Airbnbs. The people are really making the killing. But don't get me wrong, if you're making $4,500, $4,500 per month on a year-round rental, you're not hurting. They're making a lot more than the people who are, even if you have a homestead, you're getting some savings. But those people there, a lot of them are elderly, and they're on a fixed income. These people who have rentals, they have 2 or 3 rentals, 4 rentals. They could possibly on top of their own property. So I just would like you all to think about that, and I would vote against it myself, but thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Ms. Alberto.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I appreciate the idea behind it and the attempt to do something, but we have to do a lot of different things. We need a short-term rental ordinance. We might even need a moratorium on new rental registrations. There's a lot of things we have to do. And the bottom line is we have to, and people don't want to hear it, the goal here is to lower the house price. And I know people don't want that, but that's the only way we're going to take back the town, so that families can move in. Everybody's going to have to sacrifice. My house isn't going to be worth $1.2 million anymore, so I guess my heirs are only going to get $800,000. Oh, well, this is it. I mean, you just have to put it in your head that we all have to move forward together, and I don't want to, like I say, piecemeal it out. And I think that people who have annual rentals, that's their mindset. I don't think, but some of them are jumping on the gravy train, I've got to say that, because people are losing their rentals all the time, the annual rentals. But most of them just have this mindset, that's what I want to do, that's what I want to do in my house. Like Al says, he doesn't want the baloney of people moving in and out. And, this would be good, but it's not going to even make a dent in the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm seeing, Mr. Lynch.
Dennis Lynch, 22 Central Street. This is, even at this time of night, this is one of the most important topics in the town, taxes. And I don't think you should lose the initiative to at least structure a resolution tonight and a directive to the town staff. And I think the council generally is correct that you don't want to start driving down on specific initiatives yet until you have a larger framework to build a tax structure for. And I think that you should be directing the town staff to evaluate tax structures that give the greatest flexibility and discretion to the elected officials, because there's Rhode Island regulations that wrap around what you can and cannot do with the types of taxes that you deliver. So the biggest error, I think, is we start going down to taxes, don't tax that, put something over there. First of all, decide what your objectives are. And I think don't lose sight of the year-round homeowners that do make up sort of the key vitality element in the town. And I think, as was discussed at the town council during the budget session, we're losing ground on that, as each year there's going to be a 3 or a 4% tax increase, especially when you look out to the future with what some of the major holes in the budget are going to be 5 years down the road. So I hope that you do formulate a resolution tonight so that it does get on, get in the work schedule, so you can come back and have a comprehensive look at what you can do with year-round, with people that are primary homeowners here, maybe benefits for year-round rentals, what you can do, maybe caps on certain property values the way Newport did, so that you can really focus the best value on those people who live here year-round but may not be in the upper echelons of income and property ownership. So really, really important topic. Please don't lose sight of it. A lot of work needs to be done on it. And please get a consensus on what your primary objectives are to direct the town staff in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, this is an overarching goal of the council. I know in the past, I think every council member wants to have more year-round rentals and help with the bringing families back for the year-round rentals and making it more affordable. So we are dealing with a short-term rental ordinance. And I feel that we could kind of meld that in all together, and that's coming up not that long from now. It's been in process, so I'm anticipating sometime early October, and so we'll be seeing that. So again, that's trying to solve the issue of ensuring that we kind of try to transition to more year-round rentals. So again, that is a main focus of this council. It has been. So that's, again, in development, and it is a process, and it's going to take a little bit, and we just want to get it right this time when we bring it forward. And so we'll be seeing that shortly, and we'll be probably folding all this stuff into any regulations going forward or incentives. So this is not just a one single thing that we're going to be working on. It's a really big package of trying to find year-round housing and make it more affordable for families to move here and live here. So I think we're all on the same page on this council. So those are my comments. Anyone else any final thoughts?
No, you could just call it to a vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Motion by Councilor Cicely Bonanno, seconded by Councilor Kopek. Motion fails 3 to 2, 2 to 3. Okay, so next, the last agenda, what time is it? We have to extend the meeting. We have one more agenda item. Do I have a motion to extend the meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So this last one is coming from the town council, and it is a motion to approve the town's participation in the Rhode Island Municipal Education Compact and authorize the town council president and/or the town manager to sign the resolution in support of this initiative.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Kopek. Motion passes 5-0. We have an executive session tonight, so we have a motion to retire to executive session of the town council in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-4 and 42-46-5A2 for the purpose of discussing labor contracts for AFL-CIO, Rhode Island Council 94, Local 1179, and Rhode Island Laborers District Council Local 1033.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do I need a roll call?
Steve Ferrandi, aye.
Deb Kopeck, aye.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Everginski, aye. Motion by Councilor Lawler, second by Councilor Ferrandi. Motion passes 4-0. And we'll be back after the executive session to adjourn.
especially if it's one with a ghost car.
All right.
Can't believe they call them ghost cars, too.
I don't think we have to extend, do we? Yeah. I think so.
That should be fun.
Okay, we're back from our executive session. Just the disclosure of executive session votes. We had a motion to exit and close. A motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passed 4-0. And then next we had a motion to seal the minutes. Motion by Councilor Kopech, seconded by Councilor Lawler. Motion passed 4-0. And now do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion by Councilor Lawler, seconded by Councilor Kopech. Motion passes 4-0.